Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo got Squad Zero's Zanpakuto Part 3. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Sir, might I request a small favor from you on behalf of the SWA? Nanao asks. I am instantly on my guard. When talking with Kira, I've heard about the Shinigami Women's Association. It's been a week since Kura and I achieved Bankai, with only a week left on the training period I set. All but Momo and Nanao have achieved Bankai. For those two, there's Zanpakuto or being stubborn. They managed to achieve sufficient strength to challenge a month ago, but they are refusing to begin the battle for Bankai. They refuse to give it up, they deliberately cloud their wielder's understanding of them, and they refuse to fight. I am halfway tempted to help the two along in understanding their dot. I figured out enough that I could achieve Bankai with Nanao's 3 days ago in a conversation I was having, and I already achieved Tobium's Bankai in that same manner. Nanao's Ryuban no Hazoku, Raven's Law, is fairly interesting in its abilities. When it enters Shikai, it imposes a field like that of Kaiten Kayakatsu and forces a law upon all within range. Whoever has more knowledge of their opponent is stronger. All their abilities are reduced to the level of a newborn, however they grow stronger the more they know about their enemy. Any knowledge will do, even the otherwise most useless of trivia. Nanao, provided she knows enough, swiftly builds up to levels of power that could actually allow her to challenge the with more experience. It enhances strength, speed, weapon skill, planning ability, levels, and even provides techniques uniquely suited to take down the opponent, so long as she knows enough. It can even change form to become a weapon suited to defeat the enemy if its normal form of a katana cannot do so. It takes into account the opponent's skills and changes shape, granting equal skill to Nanao's skill with her katana with a new weapon if she is less skilled with that weapon. It is a uniquely interesting Shikai and will likely be a very powerful Bankai. Ask. I'll consider it, I say warily. I will not easily fall into a trap set by the sea. The SWA wishes for you to consent to appear on the calendar for next year. I apologize if you take exception to the next part, but Unohana Taicho insisted on it. We want pictures of using Bankai with each of your dot. I know you've achieved Bankai with Senbansakura and Ashisogi Jizo. What about Nejibana, the last of the three? You still had to achieve it with a week ago. Nanao asks. I have sufficient understanding, however, Nejibana is traditional. She wants me to fight her for Bankai. I cannot conceive why, due to the pain it causes it to have Bankai forced from them, I say. Nanao looks as puzzled as I am over this. I refuse, of course. I'd sooner do without her Bankai than cause her that pain. I figured you're out a few days ago. If you want help, I say. I thank you for the offer, and if I do not succeed in 3 days in making her fight, I will come to you and request aid with Bankai, Nanao says. Good. I'm going to make the same offer to Momo. I figured Tobium out to get her Bankai, so it shouldn't be too hard to point Momo in the right direction. I'm fairly sure about Ryuban no Hazoku, but I can't be positive until you achieve Bankai with the knowledge I give you. If you don't get her to fight, I will respond. You will really help with that, Ichi-chan? Momo asks from behind me. Yes, I will. I don't get why Tobium isn't fighting, but perhaps she set a condition before she would allow your challenge. I have a question. Momo nods and opens her mouth to speak, but I stop her with a raised hand. I don't want to know. Here you had a condition for Renji before she allowed her to use her Bankai, even after achieving it, and I've been suffering the consequences, I say. Apparently, Unohana's little trick indeed made Renji prefer males over females, which would be an orientation I doubt Renji would have held while still male. I found a similar situation yesterday. Apparently Renji's affections for Rukia when she was male became affections for me with the gender change, but I doubt she would have expressed them without Hiryu motivating her. She is as subtle as a battering ram in displaying these affections, and I am now always looking over my shoulder when she is within a kilometer of me. If it gets any worse, I am resolved to post guards at my door and windows and sleep with one eye open. Breathing has become troublesome whenever Renji is too near, if not from the death grip she names hugs, then from being smothered in her dot. I never thought I would say this, but I would prefer Matsumoto Ranjiku over Renji. I'd still be doing the same amount of paperwork, but I would be far safer from death by pleasurable suffocation. I have spoken with Shunsui and he refused to make the change. He likes his new lieutenant and it is looking like I might be stuck with Renji. Byakuya tutored Yamada Hinataro in Kido, found him quite good at it, and stole him from the 4th to become the new of the 6th. I thought Renji would return to the position soon, but apparently my hopes were mistaken and I might be stuck with Renji forever. I shudder at the thought. Ichi-chan, are you alright? Momo asks. She is quite nice, very kind, but if the rumors I've heard are true, she was the least devoted of Aizen's many fangirls. If that is indeed true, and her insane levels of devotion look sane next to any of the thousands of other fangirls Aizen had, I can understand why he ran away to Hueco Mundo. Sadly for him, that group has gotten worse. They now all believe, except for Momo, that he can be redeemed, and in return for redeeming him, he will fall in love with them. After that, I can't bear to listen to the tangents they go into as they imagine such a future. The only thing worse than them are Aizen's fanboys, who are just as bad, if not worse. I'm willing to bet Aizen could acquire hollow powers, use Resurrection right in front of them, and explain, in detail, precisely why they should be trying to kill him, and they would bow down even further, and probably offer to lick the blood off his claws or talons or whatever he would end up having after he eviscerates his enemies. They would likely compose a 1,000-verse long poem about the perfection of his Zero. I pity him, I really do. My own group of fanboys was swiftly dealt with. I used the Zanpakuto to find the building they were meeting in, gathered 3 of my freshly trained combat teams, led by Renji, Kurenai, and Byakuya, who volunteered to assist and raided their building 4 days ago. We smashed in the doors with Kurenai's Bankai, while Renji, Byakuya, and myself, all of us using Bankai as well, me using Sode no Shirayuki's Bankai, Juuchi Isamu, 10,000 Cold Winter Nights, refer to Neon Zangetsu's excellent story Snowfall for details on Sode no Shirayuki's Bankai, to deal with this abominable group. Our blade sang as we ripped apart the building. Most of them escaped, but my fanboy organization was driven underground, far from where I have to see them. Yes. Just remembering the raid a few days ago, I say, and Momo smiles. She wanted to bring another combat team, led by herself to, in her words, punish the blasphemous males that dare to believe themselves worthy of Ichigo Taicho, but I denied the request, as I needed her to rein in my fangirls. Almost 80% of the 8th Division has joined that group, and I am quite resigned to its existence. I don't like it, but I will tolerate it. Now, I agree. I will allow you to take pictures, both of me using Shikai and of me using Bankai, I say. She nods and immediately latches onto me, dragging me to the Kichiki Manor, where apparently the SWA is meeting. I flare my as we approach, and we are met at the gates by Byakuya's new lieutenant. Yamamoto Taicho, might I inquire as to the reasons we have the pleasure of your presence? He asks. Well-mannered and respectful. So far, I find little fault with this lieutenant. I am here on personal business. Apparently, the SWA is meeting here, and Nanao promised me a week without the presence of the worst of my fangirls if I agreed to allow them to take pictures for the calendar, I say. Nanao nods in confirmation. The SWA will keep its side of the bargain. He will have a week of peace, and you may carry this knowledge to your captain, Nanao says. Hinadaro nods and allows us to pass as Nanao leads me towards the meeting area. A few minutes later, we are once more outside, in a training field that has apparently been freshly prepared. Freshly cut grass at the edges, packed dirt all across the field, so dust can't billow up and blind combatants. The cherry trees nearby are freshly cut back, and there are a few of the 6th Division off to the side, with Byakuya and Hinadaro by them. I demonstrate each Shikai, Kai no Ti no Megami's 4 states, leaving me bleeding by the end of it. Her Shikai gets more powerful as more blood covers her. Unblooded, no abilities manifest. Her name filled in, the basic abilities manifest. If she enters Bankai unblooded, only its basic abilities, none of the truly terrifying ones, will manifest. Her Bankai has 12 abilities, unlocked in sets of 4, starting with the 2nd Shikai state unlocking the 1st set. When her blade is fully covered in blood, the 3rd Shikai state and 2nd set of Bankai abilities manifest. Finally, when her blade, hilt, and her wielder's sword hand are all dripping blood, the final Shikai state and last 4 Bankai abilities manifest. I demonstrate each of these states in turn, then enter Bankai. When I finally reach my last 2 Bankai, my most recent ones, I decide to surprise Byakuya. She has no idea I've attained either one yet. Her face has fallen a bit more each time I showed off a Bankai that wasn't Sanbanzakura's, but she always looks hopeful with each new blade I draw. I hide the 2 blades I have at the ready from her side and senses. I draw Ashisogi Jizo and wordlessly release its Shikai. Hinadaro looks interested in this one, as I suppose befits a former healer. Bankai. Kanjiki Ashisogi Jizo, I say, and the giant thing manifests and wails. Poison billows forth, and I draw Kazushini, releasing it into Shikai. Bankai. Shio Madarasu Dakuinzu, dark winds bringing death, I say. The blades dissolve into wind for a moment, and tornadoes of razor winds form, slicing away the poison. They also slice away, just for a moment, all light, and I see true darkness, the void of absolute nothingness, form before reality corrects the tear in itself. These Bankai's winds, should they touch something living, will instantly destroy it. They will reap its life, turn its body to a bloody mist. All that is not alive will be cut, reduced to nothingness, destroyed absolutely. This Bankai will destroy anything, end any life. A fitting Bankai, I suppose. The winds reform into Kazushini's Shikai form, which form this blade takes in both releases when it is not an area filled with winds deadly to all but me. I can make the area smaller, shape the area, but a certain area around me is filled with Kazushini's winds in Bankai. I do not need weapons in Bankai. Any ranged attacks will be destroyed by the winds. Any close-in attack will fail, the attacker killed before they get anywhere near me. There are few things that can stop this from happening, among them Kai no Ti no Megami's shield. This is not a Bankai I can use when fighting alongside others. It is a last resort, a trump card. I reseal Kazushini and Ashisogi Jizo. I covertly draw Zanpakuto and release it into Shikai wordlessly, then wait for a moment to lend proper gravitas to the moment. If you could please show us this last Bankai, Yamamoto Taicho, Nanao asks politely. Just saving the best for last, I say, and let the blade fall. Bankai, I say as the corridor of blades forms. An expression of joy is on Byakuya's face. Zanpakuto Kage Ashi, I say, and the blades dissolve into blossoms, swirling around me. Renji's actions broke through the Great Wall of Denial to some extent a week ago, and I have some suspicion that Byakuya might be interested in me. The marriage offer from her clan's elders, which I doubt she would have allowed if she disapproved, lends some weight to that suspicion, but I can't be sure. The picture is taken, and I reseal Zanpakuto. Byakuya, might I stay for tea? I ask her, determined to find out something about this problem. Yamajiji made some alterations, insisting that the clan needed to be restored and that one woman wasn't enough, so the contract allows for that insistence, which I should be happy without, but he is clan head, and his will be done. Yamajiji, with the alterations, is perfectly willing to set his seal of approval upon the contract. I have stalled him for a bit while I find out Byakuya's feelings about this. I would not force her into this, though I would seek to see to her happiness if such came about. You may, Byakuya says. I nod, thankful, and join her as she and Rukia head towards a small outside area where she usually enjoys her tea. This chance will hopefully allow me to figure something of this matter out and decide whether or not to tell Yamajiji to seal the contract. Taicho present. I hear the call, and a minute later the clang of blade on blade ceases as the 8th division gathers. Their 2 months of training are over. Nanao and Momo achieved Bankai with my help 3 days ago and began training with it immediately. They will be a suitable bodyguard very quickly. Ichimari-chan's trial for nearly deserting the Gate 13 was concluded yesterday. It was confirmed that she has always been plotting against Aizen for her own reasons. She didn't reveal them, and I don't care to guess. Shinso has finally gotten over her amusement at Jin's forced change in gender due to Unohana and is actually on speaking terms with her again. They aren't particularly friendly with each other right now, but I think they may become so given time. Jin was given a slap on the wrist. Half pay for a week, and her major decisions as commander of the 3rd to be reviewed for the next month. Suzumashi, when I asked, gladly gave up Tausen's reasons for betraying the Gate 13. Tausen was tried in absentia, with Suzumashi as the defense. She spent the entire trial piling on reason after reason why he is guilty and should be killed on sight. She doesn't want her bond to him to exist any longer than it absolutely has to. She has developed an intense hatred for him over the years, especially when he forced her to form a bond with him. He nearly killed his own spirit with that and said spirit was only saved by Suzumashi, putting everything she had into saving her. Suzumashi then proceeded to shelter Tausen's true Shinigami no Yuta, Reaper's song, in her realm until she bonded to me. A couple of days ago, Suzumashi finally had her establish her realm for the first time since Tausen tried to kill her decades ago, this time in my soul. Shinigami no Yuta is interesting in her abilities. Depending on the song she chooses to sing, different effects are applied, though they are largely the same effects for certain types. If she chooses a dirge, for example, the enemy will live only so long as the song lasts. A jig, and my allies will likely be healed and strengthened, as will I be. Shinigami no Yuta and Ryuban no Hazoku are the most recent, and I hope the last additions to my power for some time. I want to learn control before my grows even more. Nanao forced me to bond with her after she heard about Kurenai doing the same, saying that as my guard, she could do no less than let me wield her blade if needed. My guess as to Ryuban no Hazoku's true nature was correct. I swiftly found out when I realized I could use her Bankai from the moment she bonded with me. Shinigami no Yuta, I have been visiting every day, slowly drawing her out of her shell. She is scared of everyone right now and hasn't spoken since Tausen tried to kill her. I have been letting her get used to me slowly, making sure she knows that I am her Shinigami now and that she is safe. Seeing her condition has resolved me to kill Tausen in ways so horrific they will give Kuretsuchi Taichu nightmares. I return to looking at my division, snapping myself from my thoughts as Nanao sends a Ryatsu pulse to me through our mutual connection with Ryuban no Hazoku. The teams are in perfect formation, each one with their officer at their head. Kurenai leads Team 1, and I promoted her to 4th seat very quickly once she achieved Bankai. When it was found all my seated officers had achieved Bankai, Yamajiji came to make an offer to all of them. He offered the captaincy of Tausen's former division, the 9th, to any of them who wanted it. His offer was refused by all. They declared an intention to live and die in the service of the 8th division and its captain. He later admitted to me that he greatly approved of such loyalty and that his offer was a test of it. Very good, I say. Combat teams dismissed. I roar out. They snap a salute and leave the field in good order. All teams get a week of leisure, by the order of the, before you are deployed. The front lines await you, ladies, and I expect you to meet the foe on them with all the skill and discipline you've been trained to have. I roar. The 70 combat teams, each led by one of my officers, will be dispatched to the other worlds. 70 people with Bankai, plus the 4 others with Bankai between myself and my personal guard, are not something you fail to use. I can use multiple Bankai, which tips any battle even further in my favor. This power will be a great asset to the Gate 13 and will secure a large portion of the front lines, perhaps steadying our position in some of the embattled areas and throwing back the hollows entirely in others. Sajin is approaching me from behind and I sense worry in his dot. Ichigo, he says as I turn to face him. Would it be possible to get an assignment somewhere safe and out of the way for Kurenai? Your division is excellent at combat now and I do not doubt her skill, but she is the only one I have left and the front lines are dangerous for all but the most powerful of fighters. Your division is well trained, but let them be blooded in safer areas first before they go straight to the front lines, he says. Orders from the Kurenai will be safe though, I can be reasonably certain of that, I say. She only has Shikai, which will not avail her against a vast Lord if one appears, Sajin says. I remember now that I had the entire division conceal that they were training for Bankai, so Sajin can be forgiven for not noticing Kurenai using it. The area was quite heavily secured against observation by Kido as well, to ensure no interference from noble families trying to keep, in their opinion, brutish warmongers from getting so much power. I've seen Yozo Akado. I've fought it. It's 10 no Akari's Bankai, I say. He suddenly looks shocked. She has Bankai, he asks cautiously. I nod. I withdraw my objection. How many others in your division have Bankai? He asks curiously. I smile, knowing my response will shock him greatly. He really isn't prepared for this kind of information, but I consider it revenge for not telling me I was doing the paperwork for my whole division that one time. It is not a kind smile at all. All of my seated officers have Bankai, I tell him. Kurenai was the first to achieve it though. Be proud of her for that, I continue. Do all of them have Bankai? All 73 of your seated officers, counting your lieutenant, have Bankai? He asks, eyes wide. I nod, grinning. Sajin sits down hard. Kurenai was the first to achieve it. He asks weakly, but there is immense pride in his tone. Again, I nod. He gets back on his feet and his pride in his sister's achievement is so great that it honestly hurts to look at. That's why she joined us, isn't it? Sajin asks me. I nod again. I see you are quite happy for her, I say in an amused tone. Extremely. What does her Bankai do? Sajin asks. I explain its abilities and he looks even prouder of her as he hears more. He is her only family left, as their parents were killed by hollows when Kurenai was very young and he practically raised her, being both brother and father to her. I respect him greatly for that. Shall we find her so you can congratulate her on this achievement? I ask him and he nods. We walk to the division in companionable silence, both of us mulling over recent matters. When we finally find her, Sajin immediately grabs his sister in a hug. Kurenai, I hear you've achieved Bankai, he says when he finally lets go of her. She nods, clearly glad her brother knows. I also heard what it does, and I am very glad about its power. Take your place on the front lines with pride. You might not have mastered it, but Bankai will buy you enough time against a Vasto Lord for someone who can take it down to arrive, Sajin says, practically floating, so great and evident is his joy. He always wanted his sister to be strong enough to step out of his shadow, and now she can do so. Bankai is rare, as so few can manage it without help like my seated officers did. All my officers were strong enough with training that they could defeat their and achieve Bankai, but otherwise it would have taken any of them at least a century before they could use Bankai. Possibly longer, and they could have died in that time for many reasons. The Sirite has never had so many with Bankai in its service, and a festival is being planned by Yamajiji to celebrate this sudden growth in the strength of the Gate 13. Sajin and Kurenai leave for a while to discuss some matters between them. I also consider a matter of my own. The marriage contract the Kichiki elders offered to the Yamamoto was approved today by Yamajiji, and I reluctantly gave my approval to it as well. Once the matter with Aizen is resolved, the marriage is to take place 1 year to the day from when we first met, when Byakuya came to the world of the living to arrest Rukia. I am currently unsure of Byakuya's feelings on this however. I'll visit tomorrow and ask her, I suppose. Byakuya's Pav. Ichiki-sama, the elders sent this to you for your review, a servant says, handing me a scroll. I just sat down to enjoy dinner with Rukia when this arrived. I open the scroll and look at it. A marriage contract. It doesn't mention who the marriage is to, but I resolve to slice the elders to pieces for going behind my back with this. Then I notice the seals at the bottom. The Kichiki clan seal, which I expected. And the other one is not the Amida clan seal I expected, as the elders wish to get their hands on some of that money, in addition to the already vast fortunes of the Kichiki clan, but rather the Yamamoto clan seal. Ichigo's clan. I stare at it in shock for a moment. Then I force myself out of my shock. Yes. I call happily. The elders have actually proven they have brains in their skulls, instead of their heads being solid masses of bone, as I sometimes think they are. Rukia is looking at me in puzzlement and I show her the contract. Why are you so enthusiastic about a marriage contract, Wani-sama? She asks. I point to the seals at the bottom and she suddenly looks shocked. Then she looks angry. Ichigo, you idiot, how dare you try to force yourself on Wani-sama? I'll kill you for this, she growls. I glare at her. The contract was my idea and I do hope you will be on good terms with your future brother, I say happily. Today, there is nothing that can ruin my happiness. Probably nothing will be able to for the next week. Ichigo is mine now. I began to like him when I observed his skills both in combat and in diplomacy, when he talked me out of killing him over the small accident when he was running from Kuretsuchi. When I saw him fight with Kai no Ti no Megami's Bankai, I started to take serious notice of him. When I started conversing about him with Senbon I began to fall for him. When I spent the last 2 months frequently in his company, observing and talking with him often, I fell wholeheartedly and began my plots in full to have him. I notice one clause in the contract that I disagree with, but I suppose the Yamamoto clan does need to be revived, and simply adopting someone will not do. There are promising candidates in the Rukongai, but none up to the standards that any Yamamoto would need to meet. Children are rarely born to Shinigami, so they would naturally wish to maximize his chances of having Ichigo produce more than one child to carry on his legacy. I can accept that clause, and it will certainly assure me of company. Ichigo's Pav. Byakuya will probably be angry about this contract being made, and I'll have to talk her out of killing me and getting out of the contract that way. I think I'll bring my bodyguard, along with Sajin and Kurenai, just to make sure I survive the visit. Ichigo, we are good friends, yes? Sajin asks when he returns to the room. Of course we are. We have an excellent friendship, which will only grow stronger over time. We have decades more to build it, but I would already call this friendship stronger than any I had when I walked fully among the living, I respond. Would you say I am the brother you never had the good fortune to have? He asks. I nod, wondering where he is going with this. Would you object to formalizing that and calling me brother in truth? Kurenai has said that she would be happy with such a thing herself. I certainly would not object to being your brother-in-law, Sajin says. I suddenly feel as if I have been hit by Kakujo Tenjin Myo. What the hell? Sajin, are you serious about this? I ask. He nods. I am entirely serious, Ichigo, he responds. I consider the entire matter for a moment, then decide to let Yamajiji suffer a headache, as I will be suffering one tomorrow when Rukia is shouting at me, while Byakuya is trying to kill me for this marriage contract. Sajin, I like Kurenai and have no personal objection to this, I respond. But Yamajiji needs to approve as well. He is the head of my family, after all. However, I like the odds. He is determined that I should have a large family, and he likes you. He negotiated with the Kichiki clan to allow for me to have more than one wife when they offered a contract, which he accepted today, I told him. Nai-san, I cannot object to having sisters, Kurenai says. Sajin nods grimly. So I must acquire Jinryusai Dono's permission. Very well, I will do so. Then the matter will be done properly as well, with all due formality and consequence as befits the occasion of a Shinigami captain's sister marrying into the Satecho's family, Sajin says, nodding in approval. He then turns and leaves, heading towards the first division most likely. Kurenai is mobbed by the members of my club of fangirls a moment later. Give her some peace for now, I say. Time enough to interrogate her tomorrow. Kurenai, accompany Sajin. Yamajiji will wish to meet you before he decides, most likely. Yes, Ichigo, she says, following Sajin out of the building. This meeting will decide much of the rest of my life. Yamajiji's will cannot be denied, as he is my clan head. I wonder what his decision will be and what it will mean for the rest of my life. The next day, when Ichigo is visiting Byakuya. Yamamoto Taicho, how nice to see you again, Hinataro says as he opens the gate for me. He is well-mannered, takes pains not to offend, and well-disciplined. A perfect lieutenant, save for his combat ability, or rather the lack of it. But he will do it, I suppose. A pleasure, Yamada Fukuteicho, I respond. You wish to see Kichiki Taicho, right? He asks. I nod in confirmation, and he leads me to her, though I can sense her perfectly well. What is her current temper? I ask warily. Terrifying, sir, Hinataro replies. I groan mentally. That is not a good sign for me. She found Yuichiro tunneling into the manor, and instead of chasing her away, Kichiki Taicho patted her on the head, calmly led her away instead of going into a rage, and bought her all the candy she could eat. And sir, the captain's smile is as scary as Unohana Taicho's, and it won't go away, no matter what we do. Hinataro wails. I swear, it would need to be removed surgically to get rid of that smile, he declares. I am now terrified. Byakuya is likely imagining the tortures she will inflict on me all this time. I decided to be safe, and draw Zangetsu. Hinataro has had his blade drawn since he met me. We get to the door of the room Byakuya is in, and Hinataro warily opens it slowly, then shoves me in and slams it behind me, leaving me to face Byakuya, who is smiling from ear to ear, and it is very clearly in joy. Ichigo. She shouts, and glumps me. One thought enters my head. Who is this, and what has she done with the real Byakuya? Hello, Byakuya, I respond. I take it you heard about the contract? She asks. I nod. Good. I feel I should marry once more, this time a marriage that can produce heirs, unlike my previous marriage to Hisana, she says. I prefer you to the other choices I had, and am quite happy your clan had accepted, she explains her joy. I nod, understanding now. I will keep this marriage as happy as I can, I respond. She nods, her smile getting more joyous, if that is possible. Then there is no problem. The came by earlier, told me of Kamamura Taicho's request on his sister's behalf, and I approved. I feel unequal to the task of denying such a request, Byakuya says. I nod now. I will deal with Rukia, Byakuya says, halting the last of my immediate worries about this. Then Byakuya alleviates one more worry. My marriage to Hisana was partly to help my cover. I did love her, but this cover of mine was precious to me before, to avoid the problems that are appearing right now, she says. With the new knowledge of her true gender, some of the more old-fashioned noble families are questioning her ability to lead the sixth. Also, there are people producing false videos of her and Hisana in the bedroom, which I destroy whenever I see them. Those are the biggest problems, but there are others appearing as well. I understand, I respond. I take it the knowledge of this arrangement will be public soon? I ask curiously. She nods in confirmation. I rise and seriously look at the room for the first time, since I will probably be staying in this manor some of the time in the foreseeable future. There is only one door, the one I entered through, which is a sliding panel, with a cherry tree blossoming painted on the paper laid over the wood frame. Paper and silk paintings decorate the wall, each of them clearly the work of a master artist. The floor is unadorned, though a finely woven rug covers its central area, where Byakuya and I just sat and talked. A bit too much art for my liking, but that can be fixed. You survived. Hinataro asks in shock when I open the door and leave, once we are well away from Byakuya of course. She was happy instead of being angry, Yamada Fukuteicho, I responded. Apparently she took joy from the knowledge of the fact that she is to marry soon. My clan and hers sealed the contract yesterday, I informed him. He looks shocked. I wish you all joy, he says when he recovers. Thank you. You may tell others. This isn't going to be private long. The announcement is in 3 days, I tell him. He nods. Understood, sir, he replies. Then he leaves, probably to start spreading this information. I make my own way back to the 11th, thinking about the possible reactions to this. They will be interesting, no matter what. But will they be positive or negative? Ichigo, Yamajiji says, snapping me out of my thoughts. Yes. I ask. Do you wish me to grant my approval to the request from Kamamura Taichu that you marry his sister? He asks. Little would make me happier than to call him brother, I responded. Very well. I will speak with him, and the matter will be arranged, is the response. Your soon-to-be brother argue his point elegantly and at length last night, taking hours to finally let me get a word in. I would have approved immediately save for want of your approval as well, Yamajiji elaborates. I am amused by this, and it is clearly showing on my face from the look on Yamajiji's face. Did it keep you from sleeping, Yamajiji? I ask, and he nods ruefully. Indeed. I let him lecture me on the reasons why such a joining of our blood should happen, then I couldn't stop him, is the reply. I will reprimand my brother for that, rest assured, I will respond, and walk away, heading for the 7th Division to carry the good news to Sajin. I will likely not leave for some time, since Ajin will want to inform his entire division, and I will likely be pressed into assisting with that. Then there is the matter of the party that will begin soon after the news begins to spread, as Kurenai is well liked in the 7th, and this is good news being brought that will spread much joy among her friends in the division. We have a bit of trouble, Kurenai says. We just received information from Urahara Kisu that the bounce have resurfaced. The 7th division just finished their party and one was about to start at the 8th when this unwelcome news arrived. I had been busy reviewing the past enemies of the Sirte when I first took the position, so I know what the bounce are. First 10 combat teams are to prepare for immediate deployment, I instruct. Those who invaded before are to be contacted immediately. Their assistance will be invaluable. We need to be able to freely move in the world of the living, and without assistance, we will not be able to do so. Indeed, we would not be able to properly track down the bounce, who are doubtless experts at hiding among the living by now, I say. Kurenai nods. Yes, sir. And your sisters? What are we to do about them? She asks. Nothing. The bounce won't be interested in them. They will never be Shinigami, no matter what happens. My father apparently found some way to keep their powers from being able to develop along that route. Due to that, they are closer to mod souls than anything, and the bounce don't attack those, I say. Understood, sir. So we avoid that area? Kurenai asks. Yes. My father's powers are too far gone to interest the bounce, but he isn't human enough to feed them either. They will not find a meal there. So we are to secure Ishida's safety instead. He will be priority, along with Urahara and his assistants. If the other exiles he helped to escape the Sirte also survived, they have a Kido master with them who can likely conceal them from anyone, I explain. Okay. So Urahara's shop and this Ishida need to be guarded to make sure the bounce don't get their hands on them, Kurenai confirms. Indeed. Ishida's father is a Quincy as well, and Ishida is both my cousin and a Quincy, even when he doesn't have access to his powers. I'm willing to bet that was corrected by some means however. Urahara knows how to do it, I am sure of that, I explain. Very well, Kurenai responds, then turns to the division. First 10 combat teams are to muster. Have been seen in the world of the living. Prepare to move out, 8th division is to go to war. She commands. The first 10 teams snap to attention, the slam of their feet impacting the wood floor clearly audible. Yes ma'am. They roar in return. They will do well in this battle. Now that all of them have attained Shikai, and at least 10 in each team have become Kido users that would not have shamed the Kido Corps, they are indeed powerful enough to hold their own on the front lines. Most of this training was concealed from the noble families who would have objected until they could do nothing about it. Even other captains didn't know until recently. Messenger incoming. My 8th seat shouts. More trouble. Seriously, I just dealt with clan matters and was chastised by Yamajiji using Raijin Jaka a few days ago when I raised objections to his forming a marriage contract for me and it took 3 hours for Anohana to heal me fully. Then I find out the damned bounce are extant again and now more trouble. Sir, trouble at the front lines, the messenger gasps. What is it? I ask impatiently, signaling for my bodyguard. 13 Vastal lords just entered one of the other worlds. There's something like 50,000 Ajuchas following them, he gasps. He wears the symbol of the 2nd division, who is responsible for bringing information from the front lines to the Sirte as well. I can rely on this information to be true, and that makes my blood run cold. Orders, sir? Nanao asks. Gather the division. All 70 combat teams are to prepare to move out. We go serious from the start. Bankai if you have it, Shikai if you don't, and I expect Kido to be flying. Watch your comrades' backs, this is our baptism in blood, I say grimly. Nanao turns and starts yelling orders, mustering the division. I immediately signal for 4 of our Kido users to follow me and begin opening the Sinkamen. 2 massive pillars stand just outside the west side of the division, both of them inscribed with kanji. I had them made not long ago to create a Sinkamen large enough to deploy the 8th all at once whenever necessary. This situation definitely makes it necessary. The combat teams are leaving the building not a minute after the 4 Kido users start pouring into the pillars, opening the gate. Each one will open a portal in a different location, with the first 60 teams taking the portals into the worst of it, while the last 10 act as are rearguard. I feel a massive surge of and turn to see at least half of the 11th 10,000 incoming. It is the most favored destination for male Shinigami and frequently sends out scouts to grab recruits from the Rukongai. Currently, the 11th is the largest division and most of it is in the Sirte right now. Maybe 1 in 4 have Shikai, but they don't need Shikai to be dangerous. Zaraki is an excellent example of this, I feel. Some of them wear limiters like this to force their to build up as it strains against the limiters, trying to get free. Their pure raw power makes them dangerous indeed. Heard you were going for a fight. Mind if we join in? Ikaku asks. Not at all. By the 13 Vasto Lords, there is plenty of fighting for all of us, I say. There will be many victories to boast of when we return, and much glory to our names, I say. The 11th roars in agreement. But answer, Zaraki growls. He is looking eagerly at the Sinkamen. So, how do we do this? He asks. Your Shinigami are the anvil. We send you in, you mix it up with the Ajuchas. Our team split in 3. 10 of ours will be a rearguard, providing support wherever they can, the other 60 will split in 2, flank them, and join in the middle to be the hammer. You and I will hunt the Vasto Lord, however, Zaraki Taichu, I say. Sounds good, Kenpachi Yamamoto, Ikaku says. We'll do our part gladly. Tell me, is the rumor of all your seated officers having Bankai true? He asks curiously. It is. They will be using Bankai to make absolutely sure that we don't go into this without enough power to win, I say. The 11th is forming up, with teams 61 through 70 joining their ranks, while teams 1 through 30 and 31 through 60 form up in 2 separate formations. Zaraki, Ikaku, Yumichika and Yuichiro join up with myself and my bodyguard, as our team will be hunting the Vasto Lord. Sinkamen is almost ready. Barks one of the 4 who were beginning to activate it. Corridor stabilized. Setting coordinates. You're going in cold and fast, make the surprise count. She roars out. The other 3 are declaring the coordinates of the Sinkamen that is forming on the other side, and almost have it done. A moment later, the Sinkamen is formed on both ends, and we are charging. We enter the gate, and a second later have passed through to the other side. Look at them. The numbers were vastly underestimated, I say. Over 100,000 Ajuchas, and at least 50 Vasto Lord, are clearly present. There's a saying in the 11th. A war cry. You know it? Ikaku asks. I nod. Use it if you want, he says. I nod my thanks. I have dug my grave in this place, I proclaim. The 11th and 8th take up the cry with me. I have dug my grave in this place, and I will either triumph or I will die. No pity. No remorse. No fear. Over 8,500 Shinigami roar. We will triumph. Or we will die. There is no middle ground. There is no retreat. Zaraki lets his eye patch fall to the ground. Shikai flare from everyone who has them. All my seated officers enter Bankai, as do my bodyguard and Ikaku. I draw Raijin Jaka and wordlessly enter Shikari. My face is set in a grim smile. Bankai. Zanka no Tachi, I say, determined to die well if that is my fate. The strongest of all fire type enters Bankai, and the battle begins. Let's start hunting, I say grimly. Zanka no Tachi burns in my hands. Don't get too close. I would hate to annihilate someone by accident, I state as I leave the group, heading to wipe out a group of Ajuchas. I'm going to try to draw out the Vasto Lord by killing the subordinates. We are fighting over and within a city, which seems to be somewhere in Japan by the looks of it. I land and the concrete of the road I land on melts under my sandals. The Shinigami comes to feed us, one of the Ajuchas snarls. Zanka no Tachi, Kita. Tenchi Kajin, I say, and the flames roar forth from the blade, incinerating 20 Ajuchas. The battle above is going well so far. The initial shock of the attack allowed the 11th and 8th to establish their position and secure the area. Now, they are fighting for their lives above me. Shinigami, a voice comes from nearby. A hollow that appears to be a humanoid crow approaches me. You will be my meal today, he hisses malevolently. Wings of white bone spread out behind him. I am the Portador de Invierno, bringer of winter, and when my wings beat, all things freeze, he says as his wings sweep back, then forward. Icy coats the area, locking it in ice. One human inside the now frozen area takes on a sudden look of agony, then topples, his blood clearly frozen. Not a pleasant way to die. Around me, however, there is still heat. How are you alive? All things die under my ice, the Vasto Lord hisses. Zanka no Tachi, Nishi. Zanjitsu Gakui, I say. My body burns as hot as the sun right now, I tell him. Humans are screaming and running away from where we are. Good instincts. This is not a good place to be right now. No ice can survive in my presence, I tell him. Then I will kill you with my claws, he hisses and lunges forward, his claws lengthened into blades of ice. I meet them with Zanka no Tachi, blocking each of his blows one by one. His blades melt when they touch mine, but he reforms them. I get a solid cut in and he proves to have something most annoying. I cut off his arm, and an instant later I'm blocking blows from the arm I just cut off and incinerated. High-speed regeneration, I say, both a realization and a curse. Indeed. You cannot survive this fight. Yield now and let me eat you, and I might be merciful to your comrades and kill them quickly, my FWP says. I shake my head. So be it. I was hoping to avoid the use of this technique, but oh well. Zanka no Tachi, Tohoku. Nani Moachu no Yukido, I say, and flames burn forth from Zanka no Tachi. My foe is reduced to ash the moment a wisp of flame touches him. These are the flames that reduce the universe to nothing. A mere Vastolord could never survive them. I contain them in my blade once more and go seeking a new foe. This is not going to be a pleasant flight or a short one. 3 hours later, the anvil and hammer have met and are fighting for their lives with everything they have in them. Only 17 of the now confirmed 58 Vastolords present have been slain, 12 of them by me using Zanka no Tachi, and we are all getting tired. The waves of Ijuchas seem endless, unable to be stopped by any force. I sealed Zanka no Tachi back into Shikai when I rejoined the main force to bolster its efforts. So far, the 8th has kept its members from falling, our healers and discipline keeping our warriors alive. But that can't last forever, and almost half of the 8th are fighting with wounds. The 11th has seen 79 Shinigami fall so far. The wave tactics of the enemy have seen over 1,000 Ijuchas die, but there are more coming through the Garganta behind their lines. Many more. They will break us before we break them. Do we retreat? Kurenai asks me quietly. The Sinkamen can be opened quickly. There is no shame in retreating from this foe, and the Sarate needs information, she says. No. Sing, Shinigami no Yuta, I declare. I was hoping to avoid using her. The katana I drew from my side has the blade become broader at this command, and the center melts away, leaving a set of strings like those of a violin. The hilt has a slit open in the back of it, and I raise the release for the first time. I don't mind. I want to be used, I hear her gentle voice say, speaking from my inner world. I'm finally being wielded. What is the occasion? She asks curiously. You're the last hope for more than myself and perhaps a couple others surviving this. Please tell me you feel like singing a dirge, I ask. I'm a bit too cheerful, but I suppose I can. Why? She asks me. We have nearly 250,000 Ijuchas and 41 Vastolords to face. Many of ours are walking wounded and we are going to get tired fast, I tell her. I hear nothing more from her except the mournful sound of a dirge resonating forth from her blade. Sadness and mourning is clear in the song, and the notes ring out clearly, carrying far. No one but me knows this blade's powers yet, but soon all will. About midway through, a second wave of almost 50,000 Ijuchas begins their charge at us, and this charge will overwhelm us. Just as they enter melee range, having abandoned Seros for claws and fangs, the song ends. The first of them is barely 2 meters from the forefront of our lines when it dies, all of the mob disintegrating into dust in an instant as they die by the thousand. A few thousand in the main body of the enemy army heard it as well and disintegrated with the others. Did that help? Shinigami no Yuta asks eagerly, like a child asking for a puppy. It helped greatly. Over a fifth of the enemy Ijuchas died with a single song, I responded to her. I have observed her frequently speaking with Suzumushi about various matters, including her view of the world. She despises almost everyone, but of me, the new wielder who took her in, she has only good things to say. The best comparison is that she acts like a beaten puppy who has been shown only cruelty but still wishes to be patted on the head and told she's a good girl. In me, she has found a master who will gladly be kind to her and she very clearly likes me for that. But whenever she is dealing with her foes, she is a rabid wolf, eager to kill them for her master. What tune do you want next? She asks. Something to heal and restore, I say, and a new song begins. A moment later, I recognize it as Scotland the Brave and chuckle. Wounds start closing, spirit visibly returns to the Shinigami around me, and levels climb once more. When the song is finished, every single Shinigami who hadn't fallen in battle, even those who had just a flicker of life left, are once more healed, with full levels, and standing proud. We might be able to weather this storm after all. Another charge begins as a jig starts up from Shinigami no Yuta, and strength and speed flood my limbs. We meet the charge and throw it back, our increased physical abilities allowing us to hold the line. 29 more hours we hold our position, blades flashing, Shinigami no Yuta singing her deadly songs. Again and again we throw back attacks, losing 2 or 3 more each time. Thousands of Ijuchas lay slain below, their bodies piling into mounds, the smallest of which is over 10 times the height of Zaraki. The weaker ones I've killed with a glare back by, but I long since lost count of how many died that way. 1,000. 2,000. Over 5 million Ijuchas have been slain, and 9 times that number still awaits on the other side, waiting for their turn. The Garganta closed an hour ago, leaving me sure that no more foes will be coming. Only 3 of the enemy Vastolords await, but that is 3 too many for my liking. All are powerful, and we also have to chase Ijuchas from the mounts of hollow bodies to keep them from gorging and evolving. We do not need more foes of that level. Shinigami no Yuta's voice is recovering right now, and has been for 6 hours. I resorted to Kai no Ti no Megami half an hour ago when the last wave hit and nearly used her Bankai when the wave broke on our wall of flesh and blood. Before that, I was using Shinso, before that, Tensa Zangetsu, and before that, I was using Kakujo Tenjin Maiao to thin the enemy ranks a bit with the Giant's Blade and a few energy attacks. Right now, I'm holding my guts in with one hand, while the other holds my blade in a death grip, bleeding from 100 different wounds. When we are mustering to meet the latest wave, 32 hours into the battle, and with over 1500 of the 11th dead, and 62 dead from the 8th, Nusen came in form and the 1st division emerges, led by Yamajiji, who is flanked by Juishiro and Kairaku. Do you mind if we join this battle? Yamajiji asks. I shake my head wearily. Not at all. Please, take as many ajuchas as you want. We are going to rest, if you don't mind, I will call back to him. He nods, and I fall from the skies, too tired to even bother keeping myself in the air anymore. The last 6 hours of fighting, with my being used by the healers to supplement their own stores of power, has exhausted me. I land in a mound of hollow corpses, and can't even bring myself to care enough to get off of them. My armor is battered and cracked, my robes are shredded, my Haori has seen better days, and every last bit of me is covered in blood. The city below is heavily damaged, but right now I really don't care. Memory modification will deal with the problem. I hear cries of concern from above and weekly pulse mic to reassure them I'm fine. Then I watch the first go into battle. To join their ranks is a privilege, as only the finest Shinigami are chosen from other divisions to join their ranks. Kido starts flying forth from their ranks as are released, and the dying screams of hollows fill the air. They die under the fury of the first Raijin Jaka slaying 10,000 ajuchas with every swing of the blade. Kaiten Kayakatsu annihilates foe after foe as the rules of the world bend to the will of that, and Sajo no Kodaori absorbs every blast sent at any of the first and returns it to the owner, marked unopened. My fellow captains are in fine form today. I notice Araki plummet from the sky as well. As the only 2 captains here, we had the largest demands on our abilities, as hollows either sought to devour us for the sake of killing a captain or protecting our subordinates from the main blows of each wave. This was a proper fight, he groaned. He landed a meter from me, if that, and is weakly gripping his blade. Yeah. Let's not do it again anytime soon, I say. I hear no response and feel his dim a bit, indicating that he has fallen unconscious. I look up as another Sankamen opens and see the 4th division emerge from it. Anohana goes to Ikaku and Nanao, who are marshalling what force they can to support the 1st, and I enhance my hearing with so I can listen in. Where are Zaraki Taichu and Yamamoto Taicho? She asks. Nanao points downward to the mound where we are. They were badly wounded in the battle, she explains. I am about to listen more, but I am suddenly assaulted in my inner world. You're weak, oh great king, and I'll be taking this body now, an insane voice says in my mind. Damn it all, why does my hollow have to choose now to attack? I'm busy bleeding out, for the Spirit King's sake. I see Anohana descending towards me and waves her away, entering my inner world. Not happening, I snarl and strike at the damned hollow, whose Zangetsu has kept bound until now. Kai no Ti no Megami Shikai clashes against Zangetsu's cleaver blade, and the blast of red that bursts forth from Kai no Ti no Megami slams the hollow back into and through a building. What the hell? That isn't Zangetsu, my hollow says indignantly. I suddenly realize that Zangetsu probably concealed the existence of my other blades from the hollow. The city is shrouded in thick mist, so thick that I have to rely on my sensing to see anything more than half a meter in front of me. I can feel my other, but only because I know what to look for. Well, this is a nice advantage I have. If my hollow knew of the existence of my other, he could use them. Since he doesn't know, Zangetsu has given me a massive advantage. I resolve to thank him for that later. What is it? My hollow asks, now curious. That's for me to know, and you never to find out. Later, Hollow-san, I say, forced him back down with an immense effort. I've confirmed one thing. He can't access my senses. He doesn't know about my other blades and cannot find out. I have the advantage. Why did you try and keep me away, Yamato Taichu? Anohana asks. Her hands are glowing green as she begins healing me. Zaraki is currently in Minazuki's stomach and I wonder why I'm not there as well. My question must be clear on my face because Anohana answers it. Their condition is critical. Minazuki is not enough to stabilize you. I will do so, then transfer you to Minazuki, she says. Is my condition that bad? I seriously have to avoid that kind of damage in future. Very seriously, I have to avoid it. Dying is not high on my list of things to do. My human body will do it in a few years, possibly sooner, but that isn't the death I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about dying as a spirit. Though it might be interesting to find out what would happen if I was reborn and my new body came into contact with my old one. Very interesting indeed, in fact. I tried to keep you away to deal with a minor problem, which I will inform you of later, I responded to her earlier question. She looks at me and smiles, and I almost bend under the weight of that smile and tell her everything. Almost. I look forward to hearing this information then, she says, and the smile is gone. I allow myself to finally drift into slumber, tired beyond what words can describe. How are you feeling, Ichigo? Yamajiji asks. I'm lying in a bed, and the room around me is painted white, the lights on the ceiling calming me a bit. I just finished a 32-hour-long battle and I'm in the 4th division, how do you think I feel? I responded. Very poorly. But then, your wounds justify that. Your left leg had to be amputated and regrown with keto. Both arms were broken. Your ribs were a fine powder. You had a punctured lung, your guts were spilling out, you had a kidney destroyed, both arms were broken in a dozen places, 7 skull fractures, internal bleeding in 5 different locations, 23 separate wounds that would have killed with 5 more minutes of fighting, depletion, and your ribs were turned to powder, they were shattered so many times, Yamajiji hisses. He is furious about this. His only heir, Isin being a deserter and thus ineligible, nearly got himself killed. I will be lectured about this for a long time. Indeed, your wounds were quite serious, Anohana says. She and Chijiro are standing next to Yamajiji, not far from my bed. You should have used Kai no Ti no Megami's Bankai from the start, Yamajiji snarls. There is avoiding relying too much on a single, and then there is foolishness, child. You nearly got killed due to your antics. Now, who else has Shinigami no Yuta, and why did you wave Anohana away? He asks through gritted teeth. Shinigami no Yuta was Tausen's first Zanpakuto. He tried to destroy her by ejecting her from his soul when he took up Suzumushi. Suzumushi instead allowed her to stay in her realm and sheltered her until she established a realm in my inner world. Her abilities are based on songs. The song she chooses to sing decides what effects are had. The limit on this power is simply that she can only sing so long as her voice holds out. She has only recently started talking and singing again. She didn't do so until she established a realm in my inner world, I informed him. Tausen has much to answer for, Yamajiji says calmly, but his anger is clear since the room is far hotter than it was when he entered. As for the attempt to keep Anohana away, you can lay that at Urahara's feet. He attempted to use forced encroachment on me, and that created an inner hollow, which was attempting to take over at the moment. I stopped it, but I will try again, I say grimly. Urahara may know how to deal with this problem, Chijiro offers. If not him, then perhaps those who were similarly a century ago. If they survived, they may be able to help him, he says. They survived, Yoruichi says, stepping out of the shadows. We helped them do so. I've been observing Ichigo for the past couple months, and he is certainly strong enough for them to feel like helping him. They call themselves the Vizard now, and have become almost a family with how close the bonds between them have become. If Ichigo wants help beyond defeating his hollow, he'll need to find a way into that family, she says. Understood. Are there any things they might want that the Sirite can provide? Yamajiji asks. There are a couple things they want. Hachijin left his behind when he fled with the others. I know he's missing it. Mishiro is missing that candy she always loved, which she says the world of the living doesn't get quite right, Yoruichi responds. They will have these things, then, Yamajiji says. They'll be happy about that, Yoruichi says cheerfully. Now, let them approach you, okay Ichigo? She asks, then vanishes. Yamajiji. May I invite them to join the 8th once my training is done? I ask him. I feel I need a bit of testosterone when I'm working to avoid drowning in the presence of so many females. I will not be a hypocrite, is the response. As my hopes sink, Yamajiji continues. I may either allow them to take positions once more or exile you from the Gate 13. I will not exile you from the Gate 13, so instead they will be offered positions in the 8th division. Tajiro, record this decree and record that it is proclaimed under martial law when my authority is absolute, he proclaims, and Chijiro leaves to do so. Can I go to sleep and focus on healing now? I ask hopefully. The moon is beginning to rise, I see from the view out my window. No. You and I are going to be having a little chat first, Yamajiji replies, and I discard my hopes of sleeping before dawn. This is going to be a long lecture on what I should have done, and I steel myself for it mentally. The next day, at noon. Taicho, your orders? Kurenai asks as she enters my room. She is clearly out of bed against orders, as her torso is wrapped in bandages and one arm is in a sling. Nana lumps in after her, one leg in a cast but otherwise fine. Rest. Heal. We need to recover. The second is dealing with the bound problem, and the surveillance I ordered until the 8th is ready to return to combat duty, I respond. Yes Taicho, Nana replies. First, we have a couple things to do, though. How many did we lose? I ask. The 8th lost 95 of ours in battle in the end. The 11th, not having our discipline or having our healers work on them at any time except between waves, lost 1712, Kurenai says sorrowfully. An idea entered my head last night and I decided to see if it can be done now. Nanao are the names of all dead Shinigami and Academy students who died while in the Academy recorded somewhere? I ask. Yes, why? She asks. If anyone would know, she would. Nana reads any book that falls into her hands and thus has a lot of knowledge, covering many subjects. Let my seal ring from Unohana if she has it, I say. I do have it. Might I ask why Ice Fukatecho needs the kind of authority that seal would place in her hands? Unohana asks sternly. She is currently standing in the doorway. I didn't sense her, but I suppose that is forgivable. I'm tired, after all. To access my funds. I want a memorial wall for every division. A place where the names of all fallen Shinigami of that division are recorded. One for the Academy as well. A place where Shinigami can go to remember the sacrifices that have been made. A place where Shinigami can go to honor their fallen comrades. A place where Shinigami can remember the proud heritage of Gate 13 so that the fallen are never forgotten, I say. A noble goal, Unohana says, smiling kindly. This isn't one of her scary smiles, but rather a gentle one that warms me inside. Every name is to be inscribed on those walls, I say. Ranks by the names of the officers. Taicho's names filled with gold, normal officers' names with silver. Have it done, Nanao. As soon as possible, I instructed her. Yes. I will go immediately, Nanao says. She leaves the room as fast as she can, grabbing my seal ring from Unohana as she goes. Kurenai has straightened and is saluting me with her good arm. A solemn air has fallen across the room as comrades who left and never returned are remembered. Taicho, thank you for remembering the lost, Kurenai says. It is necessary. Not just for one person, but for all of us. If we do not remember those who are gone, how are we to remember their sacrifice? I ask. Unohana is nodding at this, clearly remembering past sacrifices by her division. I will put my full support behind this, Unohana says. I nod my thanks, then lie down fully, content with this day's work. I return to my healing sleep knowing no sacrifice will be forgotten, that the walls will remember when we do not. Yamamoto Taicho, I'm here to report the current movement of the bounce, Soifan says. I nod, ready for her report. It's been a week since I got stuck in the fourth and I'll be here for another week most likely while I finish my recovery. I'm getting my new leg to work properly for the most part and that will likely take at least a week, maybe more while I adjust. Very well, I say when she doesn't continue. But first, why did your messenger come to me? I ask, wondering why they didn't know of the attack first. Standing orders. When a major incursion is confirmed, the combat divisions are contacted before any others. The 8th and the 11th were the only ones not deployed at the time, so the messenger came to you and Zaraki first. We need a swift response to such attacks, and reporting it to the first would have slowed the response, costing thousands of souls, most likely, Soifan explains. Reasonable. Now, continue. And have you spotted the wizard? I ask. The wizard has not been found, despite our best efforts. I apologize for this failure in a matter so vital, Soifan says. All the captains were told of my hollow problem, and Soifan has been driving her division into the ground to attempt to locate the wizard. Apparently, now that she has accepted me as a Shinigami, she will put forth her best effort to keep me alive. Right now, the Gate 13 needs every captain class fighter it can get, so that probably explains her actions. She holds duty above all else, after all. Apology accepted. But a question, if you don't mind, I ask. Ask your question. I will answer it if it pertains to something you should know of, Yamamoto Taicho, Soifan replies warily. Why are you driving the second so hard to find the wizard? I ask. This seems to have become a personal thing for her, rather than simply a matter of duty to the Gate 13. I am curious as to why something like this should be so important to her. If you do not learn to master your hollow from them, you will die. To let you die is to fail in the charge Yorichi-sama and Yamamoto Satechu set me, to keep you alive at all costs. It is almost certain that you will be the next, and to lose you is for the next generation to lose much of its strength. Apparently, your has affected the entire 8th division and all others you associate with, allowing them to become stronger faster. Your is a catalyst, allowing others to reach heights they never could before. If we lose you, we lose that influence on the Sirite. Already, you grow strong enough that your reach is over the whole Sirite, only faintly present in some areas, but still there. Every Shinigami currently serving is becoming stronger due to that. Once your reaches the Rukongai, we will likely see more new recruits from there coming in every year. You are the future and must be protected, Soifan says. So no more risky missions for me without more backup and through scouting first, I guess, I say, resigned. Indeed. I will not fail this charge, sir. In fact, when you enter the world of the living, I will accompany you to ensure your safety, along with your bodyguard and Kamamura Taicho, Soifan replies, clearly refusing to listen to any protest against that. Very well, I respond, knowing she'll just knock me out if I try to argue the point. The place is being prepared where you and your first 10 combat teams will reside while you are on duty in that town, Soifan informs me. Yer has also requested 3 of my division members be transferred as part of the effort to rebuild your ranks, Soifan says. I see. I take it she picked well. I ask her, wondering if Nanao picked people who will have to be forced through a harsh training regimen or if she picked people who can be integrated into the ranks quickly. Well, somewhat quickly. It will take time for the combat teams to accept the replacements. After all, each team eats together, sleeps together, trains together, and spends almost every moment of the day with each other. That swiftly creates a bond between them that very few can intrude on. The new members will have to be integrated into the teams before they will be of any use. Each team member knows the capabilities of every other team member perfectly, and they work together at an efficiency level at least 20 times that of a group of Shinigami, handpicked for their ability to swiftly work together. This bond lets each team member know what their comrades will do next and plan their next blow based on what their comrades will do, even while said comrades are planning their strike based on the results of that blow. Very well. 2 of them are seated officers, and the other just needs to attain a bit more proficiency with her Shikai, and she will be of a grade to replace Amida. I suppose I can give up the 2 officers, but I keep the other, Soifan says. Fair enough. We can find more elsewhere. As the 8th is now officially a combat division, we are given priority when we request the transfer of Shinigami to our division, I say. Combat divisions always get priority, as those are the divisions that lose the most Shinigami. But the front lines constantly needing to be patrolled, combat divisions are required to maintain a strength of at least 2,000 Shinigami at all times, and at least 1 in 10 must have Shikai. This ensures the divisions are ready to respond to any threat. Ichigo, I have a bit of paperwork that requires you to approve it, Nana says, entering the room. A sheaf of paper is under her arm, probably the paperwork. Transfer papers. I guess. Yes sir. We need to replenish our losses before we can return to the field, Nana says. I nod, understanding this. Without the teams being at full strength, their combat ability is diminished, which is very bad for us. 1 of the 3 from the 2nd will not be transferred. All others will be approved, I say. Nanao nods and hands me the papers. I expected at least a few wouldn't be approved, so I made sure of some redundancy and included 10 extra potentials in the transfer requests, Nanao says, picking 3 sheets of paper from the pile and sending a questioning look at me as her other hand draws 1 sheet of paper from a smaller sheaf of documents. The one who isn't a seated officer, I clarify. Nanao nods and removes the paper, handing it to Soifan. Soifan takes it and looks it over, then nods in approval. Very well, our business is concluded, Yamamoto Taicho, Soifan says, leaving. I sent several signatures that I was masking while she was here. Tell your spies their stealth is worse than Zaraki's if they need you to help them hide, I say. She turns towards one of them, with wrath clear on her face. Incompetent fools, she hisses, dragging him out of concealment. Now I know what to look for, it's easy to spot the others. I told you to keep from his notice unless he was threatened, and you can't even do that. You're worse than Amida, she growls at him. The black-clothed Mitsukido member winces. Now that's just uncalled for. Compared to Amida, Zaraki is a master of stealth, I say. The Mitsukido member in Soifan's grasp nods in confirmation. They're worse than Zaraki, but definitely better than Amida, I say, trying to defend those who will possibly give their lives to preserve mine. True enough. No one is worse than him, Soifan says in disgust. His family paid the Gate 13 to take him. Then we drew straws to determine who got stuck with him, and I drew the short straw, she explains. I wince in sympathy. I honestly pity you for that stroke of bad luck. No lieutenant is better than an incompetent one, I say, and she nods in agreement. Mind incinerating him by accident if I station him as one of your guards? Soifan asks. I consider, then nods slowly. If he gets in the way of Raijin Jack or Kakaru, he may accidentally run into my flames and get turned to ash. No promises, and it's a very tricky thing to arrange, accidentally incinerating someone I trail off. He might even need to have a little accident beforehand. Perhaps slip and fall. I muse. I knew Amida when I was Shibukain. He was all money, no skill. He has little brains, and his presence in the Gate 13 began to detract from the abilities of the 2nd shortly after he joined them, as the lieutenant is responsible for drilling the warriors of the division. He slacked off on that, and the 2nd now loses 326% more people on a mission than they did before he joined them. Taking him out would put Soifan in my debt and do the Gate 13 a favor. I'll see what I can do, Soifan says coldly. We are clearly in agreement, which I never thought would happen. But so be it, this is for a cause greater than either of us. This is about seeing fewer comrades die. This is for the Gate 13 and for the sake of removing Amida from the Sirte, not that the latter isn't a worthy goal all on its own. Velasin came in open in the sky above me and instantly I'm on my guard. Ishida, Chad and Orihim were returned, but they didn't remember what happened to Ichigo. Knowing the Gate 13, he was likely tortured into revealing this location. The 2nd Division has been hanging around this area, likely making sure I didn't leave. I sent a message to Yoruichi a while ago, requesting she return to help with the bounce, but she didn't reply or return. Retrieving my message likely brought her out of hiding, and now she is probably dead too. I draw Benihim, determined to go down in battle, rather than be captured, and have the location of the wizard forced from me. I step outside, Tessai flanking me, to see not one, but 3 massive Sinkamen gates open in the sky. Ishida, Chad and Orihim race out of the shop to join me, though I try to wave them back inside. It's too dangerous. Run. Hide, and live your lives. We'll hold them off, I say. No. As Quincy, I will stand and fight, Ishida says. Orihim had managed to heal the damage he did to his spiritual powers, which allowed him to return to the battlefield. He returned eagerly, determined to grow stronger, so he wouldn't have to risk his powers in some battle again. We too will stand and fight, Chad says grimly. I see Shinigami pour forth from the gates. 5th Division enters the world in force. 2nd Division follows. The 8th Division joins them. Of those 3, only the 2nd is a serious threat, as they are the only active combat division of the 3. Then 5 more giants came in open, and I feel a spiritual freeze descend on the area. 6th Division enters the world of the living, followed closely by 7th and 10th. The divisions are all deploying in force, 2,000 or more Shinigami of each division deploying. All told, over 16,000 Shinigami currently occupy the skies over Karakura town. Issen arrives in a flare of having entered Shinigami form. His powers are nearly returned in full. I know better than to try and get him to run. Then I go pale in horror as the other 2 Sinkamen have Shinigami enter the world through them. 11th and 1st Division are deploying. The 1st Division, someone chokes out in a wavering voice. It takes me a moment to realize that I was the one who spoke. What could bring the 1st Division here? What is important enough to draw them from the front lines? And the 11th Division. All 3 active combat divisions are deploying in force, I say. 25,000 Shinigami have entered the world of the living. But why the spiritual freeze? No one here is powerful enough to warrant it. Then I received my answer. 8 bright stars suddenly burn to life, illuminating the spiritual world as 8 figures leave the Sinkamen after the divisions have passed through. Each one of those figures is clad in black robes and is wearing a white haori over the robes. 8 captains. 8 of them. I recognize Soifan, Kamamura, Yamamoto, Kichiki Byakuya, Kinpachi Zaraki, and Kairaku Shunsui. The other 2 I don't know, however. One looks like a teenager and his gives off an icy feel. He is white-haired and clearly proud by the way he holds himself. The other one is a tall figure in full samurai armor, carrying multiple blades, with one already in hand. The armored stranger swoops towards our little group, touching down gracefully, one foot hitting the ground and him stepping forward using that foot as a fulcrum as his other foot touches the ground. He strides forward and his blade flashes as it enters Shikai. We won't surrender, Shinigami, Ishida says. We are not here for your surrender, the Shinigami booms. All around us, those who aren't spiritually aware are unconscious, so we'll have to worry about them as well when we're fighting. We are here for the deserter, Kurosaki Issen, he declares. Hand him over for immediate trial, and we will do no harm. Resist, and you will be considered as accomplices. No deal, Orihim says, a golden shield flaring into existence in front of her. We won't hand him over, she declares fiercely. I surrender, just leave the town be, Issen says. Don't say anything, Orihim. This is my decision to make, he cut off the protest that was about to come from Orihim. He steps forward and holds his blade out, hilt first, towards the captain, who is apparently the captain of the 8, from the symbol on his haori. The Shinigami takes the blade and tosses it to someone standing in the shadows off to the side. The blade is caught and the person steps into plain view, revealing her to be Yoruichi. What are you doing with the Gate 13? I ask, feeling betrayed. Then a powerful kick from the armored figure meets Issen's jaw, sending him flying. Your own greetings sent back at you, old man, the armored figure says, and I have a sudden feeling that I've just had a massive prank pulled on me. He removes his helmet, revealing him to be Ichigo, and I suddenly know I've been suckered properly. Now, I do actually have to bring you in to face charges, Issen. Will you come quietly? Not a chance, my son, Issen says boisterously, clearly believing that statement to be a joke as he takes a fighting stance. Ichigo closes his eyes for a moment, then flashes a hand signal to Yoruichi. She tosses Issen's blade to him and he catches it as Ichigo dons his helm. Bankai, Ichigo says. Issen goes still. Any fight where a captain uses Bankai is a serious one. A pillar of dark roars up from the cleaver blade Ichigo just drew from across his back as he sheathed his other blade, blotting out the sun and enveloping Ichigo in shadows. Tensa Zangetsu, Ichigo says grimly. He vanishes, and a moment later Isin is blocking sword blows from Ichigo, grunting with effort. Why am I being brought in? Isin asks. Your grandfather, my great-grandfather, wishes to speak with you, Ichigo says. He is no grandfather of mine, Isin replies. I abandoned the spirit world when I married Misaki and attempted to keep you and your sisters from ever developing powers. It was for your protection, and still is. I'll remove your powers now, and you won't have to worry about hollows again, Isin says, his face resolved. I groan inwardly. Isin, you're being an idiot, I think to myself. Ichigo is a captain now, he can look after himself. Also, the Gate 13 will restore his powers to him swiftly, as they cannot have a captain out of action. I see, Ichigo says, disengaging and leaping back. Zangetsu leaves Bankai, returning to its sheath. He draws another blade from his side. I will take this seriously then. Fear. Despair. Know your limits and do not attempt to surpass them, he says in a chilling tone. I know my limits and they are far higher than yours, Ichigo, Isin boasts. Reduce all creation to smoldering ash, Raijin Jaka, Ichigo says. My fear from when I first sparred with Ichigo returns. I thought I had hallucinated, but he really does have Raijin Jaka. Flames blaze around us, Ichigo's blade engulfed in fire. I see. So, you think you can beat me with a little heat, huh? Isin asks, cautious now. Bankai, is Ichigo's response, a sorrowful whisper, but it carries, so everyone can hear it. The heat suddenly rises as Raijin Jaka transforms into an old, fire-scarred blade. The flames are compressed into it, and Ichigo suddenly starts glowing as heat rolls off him, melting the concrete below him. Zenka no Tachi, he names the blade. Isin, surrender, Yurichi says. You can't face this blade, she pleads with him. Isin looks at Ichigo, then lets Injetsu fall to the ground with a clatter. I'm no match. I know that. But Ichigo knows this. Unless you give up on any usage of your Shinigami powers until you die a natural death, you are not welcome in my home, Isin declares. Ichigo has removed his helm once more, and he closes his eyes. Sadness and mourning are clear in his dot. So be it. I will respect your proclamation, Ichigo says, as he grabs Isin with one gauntleted hand. Raijin Jaka is resealed and back in its sheath. Ichigo lifts into the air, dragging Isin after him. A few minutes later, Isin is hurled back towards the ground by a blow from the who he was conversing with, though it was clearly not a civil conversation, nor one that Isin was happy to have. Isin crashes into the ground hard, then pulls himself out of the ground and snarls as he vanishes into, heading home. I wonder what he is doing, then discard my musings in the interest of business. The 1st, 5th, 6th, and 10th Division leave the world of the living, though their captains remain. The captains descend to the ground, blades drawn, Ichigo now with another in hand, this one taking the form of a burning spear when he activates Shikai. Wings of flame stretch out from his back, making him almost look the part of an angel. Perhaps an angel of death. I muse. I don't realize that I said that last out loud until Ichigo calls his thanks for the new name of his division to me. His helm has a crest of burning feathers atop it, and Ichigo lights upon the ground as gracefully as he did before, armor wrapped in fire, spear spinning in his hands as he absent-mindedly twirls it, concrete melting with every footfall. We will require assistance from you in the missions that bring us here, Urahara, Soifan says. I nod, clearly inquiring silently as to what those missions are. Ichigo speaks again. We are here to find the wizard. That wrong is to be corrected. Your exile is over, Urahara, as is theirs, Ichigo says. I am shocked for a moment, then discard the sudden hope that sprang to life. Ichigo, please don't give me false hope. It's cruel, I ask pleadingly, hoping he will respect this. He holds out a scroll with the seal of the on it, marked as being sealed while under martial law. I open it and read it several times, not daring to believe my eyes at first, but slowly accepting what the scroll says. I can return home. After a century in exile, I can go home at last. You'll have a position in the 8th as a seated officer, Ichigo says. A seated officer? When will I have Bankai? I ask, amused. All of my seated officers have Bankai, Ichigo states, and that amusement suddenly vanishes and becomes disbelief. I slowly reach out with might towards the 8th Division, specifically the 73 powerful signatures among them. Sure enough, every single person with such a signature has Bankai. I see. Which seat is mine? I ask calmly, not betraying my utter shock. I was always partial to the 3rd seat, I muse aloud. You'll be joining my personal guard, so 3rd seat it is, Ichigo says. I nod, content with that. The 8th is now an active combat division, and recently saw a major battle in which the status was confirmed, Ichigo continues, and in my head, I can hear Benahem laughing in glee. She loves the battlefield. Well then, I suppose you already have a strong command structure, and assigning me to your guard is the best way to keep me from messing it up, I say, proclaiming the very clear facts of why I was granted the place I was in the 8th. All combat divisions have a very strong command structure, and bringing newcomers in is always a careful process. Simpler to assign me to guard the captain, where my abilities will be very useful. Exactly, Ichigo confirms. I move to stand at his left hand, a third seat's place. I stand a couple paces behind, just to make it clear I'm his guard. Third seat Urahara reporting for duty, Yamamoto Taicho, I say. I remember Ichigo saying Isen's grandfather wished to talk to him. He only talked to the dot. I guess Ichigo is a Yamamoto, and have it confirmed when I'm not incinerated by the dot. Welcome back to duty. Are you ready to get to work helping us deal with the bounce, helping me find the wizard so I can learn to suppress my hollow, and finally seeing to it that the 8th and the captains of the 2nd, 7th and 8th have somewhere to stay while operating here? Ichigo asks. I nod. Give me a couple hours and I'll have barracks ready in the training field, set up in suitable comfort for all of you. The bounce will take a little longer and the wizard have concealed their location from me. Yurichi always forgets the location after she goes there, I tell him. Give her a week and she'll probably find it again, but until then you need to be patient, I explain. Ichigo nods and waves for other Shinigami to descend as he seals his Shikai and sheathes the blade. The 2nd, 7th and 11th divisions leave as the 8th descends, blade sheathed. All but the captains of the 1st, 2nd, 7th and 8th leave with the 3 divisions that depart. Yamamoto Satechu creates a Kido barrier that seals himself off from the world. No one can see or hear us, so he probably wants to tell me something that won't be overheard. Urahara Kisuke. Don't you dare fail in your duty to keep my great-grandson alive. Fail, and even if you flee into hell, I will pursue you. Is that clear? He asks. Yes sir, I respond, and the barrier vanishes. I'm glad we had that chat, third seat Urahara, aren't you? He asks. I'm very glad we had that chat as well. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do, I say, fleeing into the training area to get my work started. I will do my duty, and not just because Yamamoto Satechu is not someone you want to anger. I'll do it because Ichigo allowed me to return home, and for that he has my loyalty. Ichigo, we need to talk, Urahara says. About what? I ask, having some guess about what he is going to say. I saw him talking with Isane, who accompanied me earlier to help me finish healing, and who will remain here until I am finished. My bodyguard should know about my health, so I suppose I can't blame her. Do things. First, how did you survive your injuries? Second, how did you keep fighting? Urahara asks. Oh, and can I expect you to come back in that kind of shape again? He asks in a dangerous tone. In reverse order, no, Ransa Tengai and a bit of healing Kido. I learned that keep someone alive so long as they have. The moment I ran out, my wounds would have killed me. But I survived long enough for Anohana to get to me, and she has enough skill to save anyone with so much as a flicker of life still left in them. I was able to keep fighting with Ransa Tengai, which my cousin insisted on teaching me before he left the Sirte. Wasn't hard to figure out in the time I had, and I've since perfected it. Anohana had enough to restore my reserves enough that I could be healed before she began to heal me, I tell him. Yeah, I know that particular Kido trick as well. And as for the leg, I'm guessing it was one of Anohana's new tricks that she developed recently. Urahara asks me confidently. He clearly already knows the answer to his question, but I answer anyway. Yes, it is. Kuikaku refused to have it used on her, she wants to remember some lesson losing her arm taught her, I respond. Anohana developed the Kido only 3 years ago, and it is doubtlessly useful. My leg was one of the last things healed on me, the procedure done only once I returned to the 4th and had regained some of my, so they could regenerate my limb. How do you know which Kido I used, by the way? I ask. It's fairly obscure, considered fit only for berserkers by now. Used to be that all members of every combat division were taught Kido. The Amida family bribed the Central 46 to take it out of standard teaching when one of their joined a combat division, Urahara replies. It is pretty good for berserkers, and I wouldn't be surprised if most of the 11th still know it or are taught it, given Zaraki's attitude. He definitely knows it, and it takes little to no control. Perfect for suicide missions as well, which is why the 2nd liked it. You could send one person in, and no matter how much damage they took, they could go until the job was done, he informs me. The 8th will learn it as well then. It is far too useful not to have it widespread among our members. Now, I take it. Do you know how to teach it? I ask Urahara. Ikaku taught me the Kido, but I don't want to ask him to teach it to the entire 8th division. He's busy with other things. Why not? Whoever taught you? Urahara asks, looking a bit put out at my request. 1. It's an order. 2. Ikaku is busy. He said a Kenpachi should know it, but I don't want to try his patience. Third, you'll teach them better, I tell him. He knows how to deal with lower ranked Shinigami better than I do from his previous time in Gate 13. Kido isn't hard to teach or learn. Anohana developed it at the third Kenpachi's request and made sure it was simple. Kenpachi's bloodlust does affect some of his squad, after all. The Kenpachi have a curse bound to them by Kido. That dark legacy passes from a dead Kenpachi to either their killer or named successor. Then that warrior is consumed by a thirst for battle, though from what I've heard Zaraki isn't much different from how he was before. The healing Kido had to be easy, as the 11th isn't known for great thinkers due to this curse spreading to affect them all. It doesn't require much, so anyone with Shinigami powers can use it. Quincy probably could do so as well if they bothered to learn. It doesn't fail unless it is deliberately stopped or unless the user falls unconscious, which is something it prevents in all but the worst cases. Given how much it takes, and the rate at which I regain myself and probably any of the 4 oldest captains could maintain the Kido for weeks, possibly months, at a time. It is extremely useful, and I curse the Amida for making it less common. If I wasn't resolved to kill Amida Fukatecho before, I am now. That Kido is invaluable to a combat division. If it's an order, then I'll do it. Besides, I am a better teacher than someone of the 11th might be, Urahara says, giving in. Excellent. You begin tomorrow, once they wake up, I say. We are just outside the barracks Urahara set up in his training field. I had created another hot spring to mimic the comforts of home and had just left it when Urahara intercepted me. I am about to grab some sleep and sleep in for once, there being no paperwork while deployed. Instead, the paperwork is routed to a few teams at the 12th who deal with it for us while we are out and about. The next day, at noon. You taught them the Kido, Urahara? I ask him as I finally leave the training field to speak with the rest of the division as they enjoy lunch. I got out of bed an hour after dawn, 3 hours later than usual, and immediately headed for the training field to practice with Kai no T no Megami's Bankai, which is now my first resort in any large battle. Right after Shinigami no Yuta, of course. Her songs are very useful for a large battle, which means she will see a lot of action on the front lines. If he still had her, Towson would likely have been sent to the 1st or the 2nd, rather than ever becoming a captain. That blade is just too useful for a combat division not to have it. If he went to the 11th, he and Zaraki would have come to blows fairly quickly. I did. It's extremely simple and takes almost no time to teach, he responds. Good. You explained its usefulness, I take it. I ask, wanting to confirm that the division will use it rather than die because they didn't use it. 52 of our dead would be alive if they had known and used that Kido. Indeed. He explained it quite well. I didn't know it until this little session in fact, Soifan says. Yoruchi-sama never meant to send me on suicide missions, nor take me into major battles, so I was never taught that particular trick, she continues in an aggravated tone. Amida dies for his family having it removed from common use due to him, I say. Soifan is nodding as I say this. Indeed. He'll arrive from the Sarate tomorrow, Soifan says. He will be joining your bodyguard to ensure your safety. I stare blankly at her. I cannot believe my ears when she says Amida will join my bodyguard. What? I ask. All 4 of my guards have Bankai and he doesn't. In any fight between opponents that I need my guard to deal with, he would be useless, I say. Soifan scowls darkly. The 8th division is extremely prestigious with the victory you attained. Many of the hollows that were killed by the 8 had high bounties on their heads, especially the vast lord you killed. Your division now has a lot of glory attached to its name, holding out against that many foes for that long. Since so many have Bankai, that too adds prestige. Your division is a wealthy, prestigious one with a lot of honor attached to its name with that one battle. The family has put a lot of money into the Gate 13's war in return for Amida becoming your lieutenant, sharing the position with your current one, Soifan says. I snarl in rage, unable to speak due to my rage at this happening. I see. He's dead, I say grimly. Very dead. I'll wipe his soul from existence. Kikau retains that power from his time as the Sakyoku. He will burn and burn and burn, I snarl, finding my voice. Dead in line, Nana says. She had come up to join me while I was speechless. The division has already called dibs on him. The moment we learned of the blows the Gate 13 has taken since he joined, we vowed vengeance. Also, he is a known pervert, and having him as a lieutenant would ensure that the females of the division are harassed by him, Nana growls, hefting her book. Together then. You beat him, I kill him. I'm pulling rank on this one, I snarl back to her. Deal. Let's be ready to get this done, Nana says. Ah, so good to see a division working together on something like this, Urahara says. The bonds of comrades grow ever stronger by plotting the death of a hated foe. Such a beautiful sight, don't you agree, Soifan? He asks cheerfully. She nods. His death will give Kuretsuchi nightmares, I vow, and Urahara shudders. The Senbonzakura screams in rage in my head, her wrath creating a storm within my inner world. Amida. She screams. Ichigo, kill him. I saw through Byakuya's eyes that his family was visiting her at her manor, and he tried to grope her. Senbonzakura screams in rage. My rage joins hers, and we sync. Urahara steps back and produces a mirror from his robes. I'm not wearing my armor right now, so my visage is clear. The shadows have gathered around me, wrapping me in infernal darkness. The massive warhammer is in one hand, burning with hellfire, wrapped in hate and rage made manifest, a weapon of purest malice, which crackles with a barely suppressed desire for righteous vengeance. Nanao is looking at me in awe, as are the others of the 8, who came over to see who was talking about killing Amida. He tried to grope Byakuya, I explain in a voice not my own, filled with unending rage. Urahara steps back, fan shaking in his hand as he hides his face. My armor suddenly manifests, but it's different. The plates appear to be weeping blood, and the cries of damned souls fill the air as I allow my rage to build. My eyes are replaced by pits of fire, and my armor becomes something corrupt, mutating into something that looks half-organic, skulls and 8-pointed stars prominent among the insignia on it. Faces appear in the armor, screaming in agony. Amida dies, I continue. Similar, but weaker hellish auras appear around every female present. I hear Sajin speak to Urahara. How did Ichigo learn to enter the state women enter when filled with righteous feminine rage? Sajin asks in a voice filled with terror. He is cringing back from me, and right now I don't care. Amida must die. I lift my head and roar, my mask twisting and mutating, turning into a maw with too many teeth and a tongue made out of razor wire, as I howl in utter rage. Inside my head, my inner hollow whimpers. I'm not hiding my rage from him, and he is terrified. Ichigo, gain control of your rage, Nanao says, her aura of darkness disappearing as the shadows around me become deeper and darker. Please. Ichigo, please get some control of this rage. I know it's hard to think past the pure wrath that always emerges whenever someone enters that particular state for the first time, but please control yourself, Kurenai asks. I reluctantly leash my hatred for Amida, and the darkness disappears, my armor vanishing. The warhammer remains in my hand, then I dismiss it and it dissolves into dot. Fine, but he still dies, I say. I feel that rage at the back of my mind and know I can enter that state at any time I desire now. Ichigo, how did you enter a state of righteous feminine rage? Nanao asks me. My rage joined with Senbonzakura's, apparently. I can still enter that state when angry though, I say cheerfully, smiling as a new aura of darkness appears around me. Everyone shrinks back, whimpering. My hollow is curled into a ball sucking on its thumb, I sense. It is terrifying, and I don't think I'll alleviate its fear anytime soon. Okay, you're now the second scariest person in the Sirite. First is Unohana Taichu, third is Kenpachi Taicho, Nanao says, taking notes on a piece of paper. Which Kenpachi? I am Kenpachi Yamamoto, though the curse hasn't taken hold, I say. Nanao facepalms as she realizes the flaw in her speech. I can't be both second and third, Nanao. Please clarify, I tell her. Kenpachi Zaraki, Kenpachi Yamamoto, Nanao says, clearly unused to calling her Captain Kenpachi. The one who is known as the mad dog of the Sirite, she clarifies even further. Good. Thank you for the clarification, Nanao, I say as I turn and head towards the barracks. I'm a bit hungry after my training. Sir, Amida has entered the world of the living, Kurenai reports. Instantly, shadows gather around me, wrapping me in infernal darkness. My warhammer is in my hand, burning with hellfire, wrapped in hate and rage made manifest, a weapon of purest malice, which crackles with a barely suppressed desire for righteous vengeance. My armor manifests, the plates now made out of bone and weeping blood, the agonized wails of damned souls filling the air. Faces appear in the armor, screaming in agony, then vanishing as new faces take their place, my mask mutating into a demonic visage as my armor becomes something that looks half-organic, part metal, part muscle and bone. My eyes are replaced by pits of fire, skulls and 8-pointed stars appearing on my armor en masse. I howl in rage, a tongue of razor wire protruding from a maw with too many teeth as my mask splits open to let the howl escape. My robes are replaced with a ragged, bloody cloak that appears to have been woven from shadows, and I am wrapped in the same hellfire as my warhammer. I step forward, leaving a burning imprint of my foot behind me. My hollow has gone into a catatonic state from pure terror, and Raijin Jaka is suddenly in my left hand, blade engulfed in black lightning made from pure righteous wrath. Where? I ask, stalking towards Kurenai, who is taking notes. Her own aura of righteous wrath burns around her, but apparently she wants to make it more powerful. Just outside the building, sir. The division is ready to attack, sir, Nanao says. She had entered with Kurenai and is taking notes as well. I stalk out, a burning trail of footprints left behind me. As I arrive outside the building, I see Amida surrounded by the division members. I nod when they look at me, and they activate their shikai. A moment later, the seated officers enter Bankai, while the division's Kido masters begin the chants for Kido of level 60 and higher. I hear 3 incantations for Heido 90, 2 incantations for Heido 91, 7 incantations for Heido 88, and 1 person is beginning the chant for Heido 98 among the dozens of budding Kido masters, 10 of whom are assigned to each combat team. When the division got its hands on the texts of the old Kido core a month ago, we found that there aren't 100 Heido and 100 Bakuto, but rather there are 1,000 of each, though only the first 100 are taught to those who don't choose to specialize in Kido. But the Kido core dissolved, that restriction is no longer valid, and the 8th gained access to those Kido, which will eventually allow our Kido masters to match at Bankai through Kido usage alone, a feat worthy of respect. Sir, what is the meaning of the blade release? Amida demands as he turns to me, then freezes in place. Annihilating you. Fear. Despair. Know your limits and do not attempt to surpass them. Reduce Amida to smoldering ash, Raijin Jaka, I growl, and the blade bursts into flames, but these flames are pure hellfire, born from the deepest pits of the abyss. Bankai. Zanka no Tachi, I snarl, and the flames join into the blade as it becomes an old, fire-scarred katana around which darkness gathers, obscuring it from proper view, making it into a blade that seems to have been formed from infernal heat and primordial darkness, as the dull glow is visible within the shadows from the heat of the blade. Amida screams and runs, Shikai being dragged behind him as he tries to get out of the area. With a nod, the division is free to hunt him. Every single member vanishes into or uses another Kido designed for the use of the Onmitsu Kido to merge with the shadows. That particular Kido turned Onmitsu Kido members into a living shadow that could go anywhere there was darkness, however the Amida, considering such a thing too dishonorable for the division their heir was part of, had the Central 46 ban it from being used or taught. That restriction was removed by Yamajiji, and we are now on the hunt with it as our weapon. What irony that he should die by a Kido his family restricted. I laugh and vanish into the shadows as well, then reappear in front of Amida. Before I arrived, the area he was in was well lit. The moment I appear however, light vanishes and the shadows gather, turning the area into a dark hunting ground where I have every advantage. You're going down, Amida boasts, Jujetsuburi flying at me. I lift one hand, letting my warhammer fade for a moment, and block the strike with a single finger, the spiked bowl reduced to slag with a touch. He draws his blade back, reseals it, then releases it again to try again with his attack. I glare, then use a little trick Minazuki taught me. I trap Jujetsuburi's spirit in his blade, ripping it from Amida's inner world. The blade reseals and falls to the ground as Amida screams in agony. That particular trick is in no way gentle towards the target. Other division members appear and take him into custody. His death will be slow and painful, a process of hours. 3 days later, during which Amida dies in a manner horrific enough that it would give Sailaporo nightmares. Sir, a garganta has opened. A hollow of the Ajucha's class has been detected opening it. This hollow is close to the signature of the hollow known as Grimjo, an Ajucha's who has twice before entered the world of the living for the purpose of destroying as much as he can before being driven off. Shinigami is detectable in the signature, so we are assuming he has become an Arankar, Nana reports. Understood. I will go to face him then. Are there any other hollows or Arankar accompanying him? I ask. No sir. There were others, but they just left. Grimjo is the only threat, Nana says. I nod and vanish into, arriving a few minutes later at the location where I sense the garganta. I draw Wabasuk, meaning to end this quickly once I arrive, then I see a black 6 emblazoned on his back. I had meant to strike from behind, but now I decided to fight head-on. I draw Hazukimaru and wordlessly enter Shikari as I step out of concealment. We are both standing in a heavily wooded park, with a few rough paths winding through it. Grimjo turns and grins as I leap into the air, taking this battle to a higher point. Who are you? He asks. There are 2 problems with your question. The first is that it is rude to demand someone's name without giving your own. The second is that we are both warriors. We will know each other through our blades, not our words. Unless I, Kinpachi Yamamoto, great-grandson of Yamamoto Satechu, strongest swordsman in the Sirite, have misjudged you. Are you not a warrior, after all? I return. Grimjo. Sexta Espada Kinpachi, who is captain of the 8th. I can read that symbol on your Heiori, so I know both by the Heiori you're a captain, and thus strong, and your division's number, but you're right, we'll know each other better if we speak with our blades, not with our words. This will finally be a proper fight, after so long of A's and not allowing me to brawl with the other Espada, Grimjo calls as he leaps up to me, drawing his blade. He charges, bringing his sword down in an overhand blow that seeks to split my skull. I raise Hazukimaru and block the blow, spinning the blade in one hand and knocking his blade away with the momentum. He lunges for it, grabs it, turns around, and brings his blade across in a block, halting Hazukimaru's lunge for his heart. I use the momentum from the block to spin Hazukimaru, hitting Grimjo in the head with the shaft. "Is that all you've got?" I ask as he rises, shaking his head to clear it. "I'm just getting warmed up, Shinigami." He roars, charging, blade striking for my heart now. I bring Hazukimaru across, blocking his blow, then bring the bladed end back towards me, bringing the shaft of my weapon up between Grimjo's legs. His eyes cross and he drops to his knees, whimpering. I wince in sympathy. Then I attack again. We settle into a rhythm, Hazukimaru striking at his vital points, me allowing him to block the strikes, then using the power of the block to spin Hazukimaru, either hitting him with the edge of the blade or striking with the shaft. Eventually, he gets used to the rhythm of strike, block, counterstrike, and I decide to reveal the little surprise I have waiting for him. This may even be a deadly surprise. "Grimjo. Hazukimaru isn't a spear, or even an ajinata," I say, and he bursts into laughter. "What is it then? A sword? A scythe? An axe maybe? No, I know what it is. It's a kusarigama," he says as he doubles over, laughing. "Nice try, Shinigami, but do you think I'm as dumb as you are?" he asks, eyes closed as he shakes with laughter. Hazukimaru is a three-part pole. "Split apart, Hazukimaru," I say, and the spear splits into its sections, the first section swiftly lunging out, the chain wrapping around Grimjo's neck as I seek to decapitate him. He stops laughing the moment I reveal Hazukimaru's true form, eyes shooting open with alarm at the command. He just barely escapes the blade, vanishing in a buzz of static, reappearing a fair distance away. He lifts his blade, then sets it horizontal to the ground as he lifts his free hand, spreading out the fingers. He sets his hand on the blade, which begins to glow blue as a tornado whips up around him. "Kurosaki-kun." I hear a voice that is very unwelcome in this situation. Orihime, Chad, and Ishida have all entered the park. I turn my attention back to the fight, annoyed with this development and hoping they'll leave. Grimjo is going all out, so I'll do the same. "Bankai," I called out. A tornado of power whips up around me as I enter the final release of this blade. I can feel a presence watching me from a short distance away, and this presence appears to be a hollow Shinigami mix. One of the wizards. My own hollow just got over its fear and is probably about to make an attempt to take over my body. I concentrate very pointedly on my foe, making sure that the hollow thinks there is an opening. The wizard needs to think I'm struggling with him. Crushing him will be easy enough with Zanka no Tachi, but I don't know if simply defeating him will be enough. I need to find some way to confirm that that is all I need to do. Ryuman Hazukimaru. I call as the tornado dies and the three massive blades are visible in my hands, with one floating behind me. A guandao, a monk's spade, and an axe. I grab the bar at the base of the axe blade and begin to spin the three blades as the tornado of power around Grimjo dies down. "What are you doing, Shinigami?" he calls to me, his true form revealed. He is clad in wide armor, a long tail extending from his back. He has long blue hair, almost a mane, and blades made of the same substance as his armor have appeared on his arms and legs. Two tufts of green fur are above his ears, which are blue like his hair. His is definitely captain class, higher than Byakuya's. I don't respond and continue spinning the blades. As the red crest fills, two other crests appear, one on each of the other blades. The one on the guandao begins filling with gold once the red crest fills, and a tornado whips up around me as the blades spin faster and faster. Grimjo charges me and is caught up in the tornado. A second later, he is flung out of the tornado, bleeding where he was caught by the blades. He charges again, faster this time, and is once more swept into the tornado as the gold crest comes close to being filled. Again, he is flung out of the tornado, skidding to a stop well away from me. He roars, and I use the wave of power thus created to start spinning the three giant weapons even faster, the final crest beginning to fill with blue as Grimjo charges. He is again repelled, and this time, an arrow lances up from below, narrowly missing him. Ishida, that fool. He should know better than to try something like that against a foe like this. Grimjo ignores it in favor of one last charge at me. This time, when he is repelled, the final crest is filled, and the weapons return to their original place in my hands and behind me. "I was charging up, Grimjo," I told him, answering his question from a while ago. "Ryuman Hazukimaru is lazy, you see. When I enter Bankai, I'm ready to fight seriously. But he just isn't ready to do that and is still sleeping when I enter Bankai, in fact. So I have to force him out of bed to reach full power so I can fight properly." The first crest tracks his progress in waking. The second is getting ready to fight. The third crest tells me when he is finally at full power. If I'm at full power but he isn't, then the blades are brittle. One good strike and they're done for, I tell him. Grimjo nods, slowly starting to grin. "So the more the crests are filled, the stronger you are, and thus the better the fight gets?" he asked me. I nod, confirming it as I start to laugh insanely. My blood is burning with the joy of battle. Grimjo starts laughing as he charges Zero with one hand, then mixes his blood with it. What does mixing your blood with a Zero do? I ask him as I raise the Guandao into a fighting position. The Zero becomes more powerful, crackling with energy. Bran Ray Zero. He calls, and the energy blast lances forth from his hand, striking at me. I raise the Guandao and bring it lancing forward as gold energy gathers at its edge. As the blade moves forward, the energy gathers at the midpoint and a lance of gold spears forth from the blade. Oni Rider Ansu. Demon Light Lance, I call as gold meets blue, a massive explosion occurring. I lunge forward through the cloud towards where I sense Grimjo, striking down and across his with the monk's spade. He fails to dodge, and a massive gash is opened across his body. Snarls in pain and lunges forward, hand striking and piercing my armor, leaving me with a wound to the gut. My hollow reacts. He lunges forward, attempting to take control. A hollow mask forms on my face, which is revealed as I am not wearing my helmet in an instant as my eyes turn black and gold, though I close my eyes before my hollow can't see Ryuum and Hazukimaru and get suspicious. If he finds out that I have other, he might be able to access their powers. The element of surprise is precious. With a mental push, I force him once more into the depths of my mindscape, deep down to where he won't bother me for a while. The mask crumbles, and I halt Grimjo's attack with a sweep of the monk's spade, catching him on the flat of the blade. I turn the blade 90 degrees and slam it down towards the ground, sending Grimjo hurtling down towards the earth. He grits his teeth, and before he hits, he vanishes into a garganta that opens beneath him. He fled the battle, overpowered and outmatched for now. He'll be back, most likely. A warrior like him will want to beat me himself, rather than let someone else do it. He'll develop some technique and come back to kill me. I look forward to that day. Kurosaki-kun, are you injured? Orihime asks me as I touch down on the earth. No, I say, as Nanao, Renji, and Momo walk over from where they had been, safely behind cover. Momo has a video camera with her, and this fight will clearly be watched throughout the Sirte. You three humans should leave. Cousin, I will visit your father tomorrow to begin training in the Quincy arts. My thanks for teaching me Ransatengai, by the way. It helped greatly in a recent battle, I say as I walk towards my bodyguard. What was your evaluation of your opponent, Renji asks me. More powerful than Byakuya. He would probably beat her with his speed, given that Senbonsakura Kageashi, at the speed the blossoms go when she doesn't use her hands to direct them, is slower than he is. He is likely faster with his speed technique when unreleased, or faster using raw speed alone when released, than I am with Tensa Zangetsu, I say. Renji nods as I say this. So beating him means I could possibly be Kichiki Taicho? She asks me. Yes, I say, and am promptly suffocating as my head is shoved into her as she squeals in joy. She learned that from Matsumoto, I hope. I rip my head from between her and vanish into dot when Renji is serious. She's a good fighter. The rest of the time, she is simply annoying in the extreme. Taicho present, Urahara lazily calls as my little group enters the shop. He and Tessai, along with a few other 8th Division members currently in the store part of this building, snap to attention. Urahara said I earned his respect by not letting my status and power go to my head. Also, I proved myself to him when we were practicing against each other each day before the rescue mission. He will at least show me respect due to my rank, even if he never calls me as he should. As you were, I say as I stride in. A few minutes later, I feel Chad arrive in the store. I'm in the back room, so I can hear him easily. Is Ichigo here? He asks Urahara. I am here, I reply as I stride into the main room, curious. My helm is on, and my blades are secured in my harness, save for Zangetsu, whose blade I was cleaning and putting a fresh edge on when Chad entered. Why are you asking for me? Your sister, Chad, responds. There is a grim tone in his voice, and I pay close attention to him now, fully alert. I motion for him to continue. They forgot you. I visited your home and found all the pictures that included you gone, your room empty and your stuff hidden, and Issen told me he had used some keto to make them forget you ever existed. He didn't want them tormented by such memories, he said, Chad reports. Thank you for the news. When you die, you will be welcome in the 8th if you become a Shinigami, I say, walking away. I will join you then, Ichigo Chad says. Is Kamamura keeping his oath to me to uphold my promise where I no longer can do so? He asks me, clearly concerned about whether or not his honor, which is connected to that promise, is being upheld. Luckily, he need not be concerned. He is keeping the oath, Chad. Also, he and I would be brothers next summer, though only in law, not in blood, I tell him. His sister and I agreed on the matter already, and my great-grandfather gave his approval, I told him. I am happy for you then, Ichigo Taicho. Orihime is denying that you are truly a Shinigami, rather than a human, and Uryu is accepting it. He says that at least you're part Quincy. He was quite pleased when you told him that Ransatengai, a Quincy power, was useful to you. I have seen him soften towards Shinigami, though he hates Kuretsuchi. He clearly remembers that part of the trip at least, and I'm starting to remember bits and pieces. Orihime never saw you as a Shinigami in the Sirte though. That place is very clearly your home, not the world of the living. You can't live among the living anymore, I can see that. You would only exist, and that is not something I want for you. I can't protect you from the misery of being in a place that isn't your home for years. The Sirte is home, and you should be there when not on missions, rather than languishing here, Chad says. I nod. I'd need it to be among the living now. I overestimated my body's durability, and it turned to dust when I tried to enter it. Thank you, Chad, is all I say, but it's enough. He smiles sadly, and leaves. Ichi-chan, what are we doing now? Momo asks me. I'm hit with an idea. I slowly begin to smile as the idea takes shape in my head. There is a festival tomorrow, and I feel like attending. This particular festival is one respecting the spirits of those who have passed on. A party for the dead. There's a little festival tomorrow that celebrates the dead. We're attending. I presume we'll be ready for myself and my bodyguard, Urahara. I ask him. They're already ready. The rest of the division won't have for a while yet, as I have to teach people to make them, Urahara responds. I will prepare everything for tomorrow as well. I have invented one little item that can temporarily grant spiritual awareness to everyone in a certain area, he says. So we can walk among them and be known. A comfort to the living, this one night of the year. I presume memory modification is built in. I ask. Indeed. They will think it is only a dream in the morning. But for that night, all the living of this city will speak with the guardians of the dead, Urahara says. I like this plan, and nod in approval. Urahara heads off towards his rooms, while I head towards the training field to give orders to the division. Tomorrow night, we enter the living world for a time, and make our presence known. The living will have their comfort, and we will have our fun. Momo, I say as I pass her. You will accompany me tomorrow, I tell her. She needs cheering up badly. Aizen's betrayal hurt her, and she has been a bit gloomy ever since, though she latched onto me to fill the void. I don't mind her doing that, as if she latches onto me, it prevents her from expressing support for Aizen, my enemy. I don't want her in the maggot's nest, so I'll put up with her being as clingy as she wants to be. You mean I'll be going with you to the festival without the other two around? Momo asks. Indeed, I tell her, then my newly healed ribs are groaning under her hug. Momo, my ribs just healed. Please, don't break them again, I ask her, and she lets go as I collapse to the floor in pain from the hug. Aizen rushes over from where she and Nana were speaking, beginning a healing keto immediately. Ichigo, are you alright? Aizen asks me. Momo just got a little too enthusiastic about the hug, that's all, I say. Well, you're working on my ribs, mind seeing the gut wound from Grimjo? I ask her, as it hasn't stopped bleeding, though it is reduced to a trickle. Aizen instantly begins healing that as well. Thanks, Aizen-chan, I say. I'm just doing my job, Aizen says, blushing a bit when I refer to her as Aizen-chan. I don't need to be thanked for that. You need to be in top shape to deal with whatever hollows enter Karakura, she continues. I nod. Ichigo, the Bounce have fallen back for the moment. I doubt they have the power to face an entire Shinigami combat division, so their retreat is undoubtedly only temporary. I suggest a staged retreat to draw them out, Nana says. Very well. We will implement that plan in 2 days. Right now, I want you to prepare the division for a festival tomorrow. Urahara has an invention that will make the spiritual world visible to all in this city tomorrow night. We will be the guests of honor at this festival, which honors those who have passed into the afterlife, I say. Nana nods, and a smile slowly appears on her face. As ordered, she says, heading towards the training fields. Renji, make sure that we have enough sake so the entire division can get drunk tomorrow night once the festival is over, I tell her. She grins madly and almost hugs me again until a glare from Aizen stops her. I give the glare 7 out of 10, and she has clearly learned well from Unohana. At Las Noches, and in a Espada meeting. Stark Pav. Aizen-sama, Grimjo just arrived, Tausen says. We just finished the TAs and always hands out when the meetings begin, which I am now sick of. Why can't it be coffee? Or at least well-made tea? The TAs gives us Espada is substandard, worse than I had back when I lived. Ugh. Now, Tausen will begin his business lecture. He lectures us on justice and how it applies in our service to Aizen, and I have by now lost all faith in blind people. If I ever meet another blind person, unprotected by Aizen, who dares to say so much as one word about justice, I will kill them. Slowly and painfully. All the Espada except Zamari have come to agree with me, and in our spare time we sometimes meet to idly make plots to kill Tausen. We won't go through with them, but if Aizen wasn't protecting Tausen well, then we just might kill the blind irritation. We're mostly hollows, isn't the unending hunger that normal hollows suffer enough for a lifetime? The ranker doesn't have that hunger, but the principle applies, I feel. Excellent, let him in can him, Aizen says. I envy Jin. He, apparently now she, escaped both tea and lectures. I seriously considered defecting to escape those things sometimes and got Lillinette to agree with me on the subject. Towson punishes unruly ranker with an all-day, 24-hour-long lecture on the principles and practice of justice. Lillinette is lectured at least twice weekly, sometimes more. What happened to you, Grimjo? Hannibal asks. Grimjo is bleeding and grinning like a madman. Shinigami. Strong one too. I went for a little trip to feed on human souls, ran into him, and got into a proper fight. Name of Kenpachi Yamamoto, his blade was called Hizukimaru, Grimjo says. Now I'm interested. I've fought him as well. His blade was named Wabasuk, Hannibal says suspiciously. He has multiple. He is extremely dangerous and not to be engaged by any but the first four Espada, Towson says. I raise my head from where it was laying on the table, now very certain that I want to hear more about this Shinigami. No way am I obeying that order, Towson. That was an excellent fight and I am not giving up my chance at a rematch, Grimjo snarls. Multiple just means he'll be more fun to fight. I'd say he's right about the level of the Primera when he goes all out if that Bankai he used against me when we fought was his strongest, he states. You're sure about that, Grimjo? As strong as me when I release? I ask cautiously, barely daring to hope. When I release, no one can be within a mile of me for fear of dying from my power. Due to that, I have no one to talk to consistently and this caused me extreme loneliness when I was a Vasto Lord. Aizen turned me into an Aranker and I'm not lonely anymore, but I do suffer from those lectures. But if the Shinigami have someone as strong as I am, I can desert and still have company. Positive. He'd have to release all his Bankai to match you if that was his strongest, but he could match you, Grimjo states. Which Bankai did he use? Aizen asks curiously. Ryuman Hizukimaru, Grimjo responds. Takes the form of 3 giant blades, each with a dragon crest on them. Once they fill up, he's at full power and ready to fight. Is that his strongest, or does he have stronger Bankai at his disposal? He asks. I am very hopeful now. Finally, an equal to my power if this is true. It isn't. Kai no Ti no Megami is his strongest, or maybe Raijin Jaka. Hizukimaru is about a mid-level, I'd say, Towson responds to the question. Kai no Ti no Megami is terrifying when Bankai is used. They couldn't match it, most likely, he continued. Raijin Jaka's Bankai made him strong enough to kill over 3 dozen Vasto Lord in a major battle recently. Okay, goodbye Las Notches. I'm deserted the moment this meeting is over. I look at Hannibal and Baragan and they nod in affirmation. Better this Shinigami than Aizen. No more lectures about justice from Towson. No more substandard tea. We're deserting and goodbye Aizen theme. What would being part hollow do to his power? Grimjo asks. Say what? A hollow mask formed on his face during the battle and his eyes went black and gold. You told us about your little experiments a century ago. Shinigami was given hollow powers. Could the same be done to him? Grimjo queries. Yes, it could be, Aizen replies slowly, considering. A hybrid like us then. Better chances of getting on his good side if that's true. Baragan is very clearly interested now as well. He hates Aizen for taking his kingdom from him and a being of that kind of power that can grow stronger with hollow abilities is his best shot at getting it back. Even if he releases, Aizen can beat him. He needs someone powerful to back him up and if he can mentor this Shinigami in using his powers, he might get enough goodwill that the Shinigami will return his kingdom to him rather than taking it for himself. He'll be deserting no matter what then. Perhaps we should move on to the meeting rather than discussing a topic currently irrelevant. Towson asks, then begins the torture. Now, when you are confused about what is true justice, it is best to remember I want to scream. An hour of this torture just began. Lizard hideout. Hachi's Pav. He's like us, is the first thing Shinji says when he enters the meeting room. He pulsed his to signal us to gather there as he approached the warehouse, and I'm curious why we're meeting. He has an inner hollow as well. Who has an inner hollow? Baka Shinji. Hiyori screams, hitting him in the face with a well-placed sandal, then hitting him again with a steel-toed boot, this time a hit to the balls. Every male here winces and our eyes water in sympathy as he screams and collapses into the fetal position on the floor. He whimpers for a while, then drags himself back up off the ground. The Shinigami captain who just moved into town, he says. He wore the symbol of the 8th and called himself Kenpachi Yamamoto, great-grandson of Yamamoto Sateichu, he says. There is an instant alarm among us at this. It has a great-grandson? Someone asks, their voice weak. It takes me a moment to realize I'm the one who was speaking. I've seen Zanka no Tachi before. If this great-grandson is anywhere near as strong as that, we're in trouble if he's here to hunt us. Yeah. He had a resemblance to the old man too close to be lying. Subtle, but it is very clear. If he isn't a Yamamoto by blood, I'll eat Sakanade, Shinji says grimly. Hiyori is silent, shocked at this revelation. But he's a wizard, and I'll talk to him. See if he can be convinced to join us, Shinji continues. A good idea, I say. If he's hostile, we're doomed. I once saw Zanka no Tachi, the Satecho's Bankai, in action. If one Yamamoto enters the field, so will the other. But if we get on his good side, we might convince him to intervene on our behalf, I say. There are nods all around. Agreed, Shinji says. Hiyori screams in outrage, but the others are nodding. Besides, he has the entire 8th Division here with him, and all the seated officers have Bankai, with everyone else having Shikai. Urahara let me watch them train. They also have hundreds of budding Kido masters who would have been worthy seated officers in the Kido Corps, he states bluntly. We can't fight that kind of combat force. They are officially a combat division on par with the 11th now. We can hope to negotiate and maybe get our exiles lifted, though. There are sounds of approval coming from all around. Lisa looks worried about something, though I don't know what the problem is. I hope it isn't too serious, as we don't need disharmony right now. We need to be united to survive. Shinji, can I make contact? Lisa asks. He turns to her, a question clear on his face. I always liked my previous captain when I was in the 8th. I want to know whether or not he died, and this new captain is the only one who can answer me, she says. Shinji nods in approval, and the plan is set in place. Do we have to do this? Hiyori asks glumly. She is very clearly unhappy with the idea of going anywhere near a Shinigami, who is also such a high-ranked noble. Nobles banished us, and she hates Shinigami for our exile. A combination of the things she despises above all else is sure to aggravate her. Shinji nods, and she closes her eyes, silently accepting this, though she likely won't like it at all. I brace myself for an unpleasant future, due to an angry Hiyori. Sir, might I speak to you for a moment? Someone wearing the badge of Division 8 asks. I turn to look and see a tall woman, black-haired with her hair tied back in a long braid. Her is sheathed at her side, and turquoise eyes glint from behind glasses much like Nanao's. Her robes are shortened however, her hakama resembling a skirt. I know no one in the division has robes that short, but I decided to humor the request and find out what she's after. If she means trouble, I can handle it fairly easily. Though, it's probably just one of the transfer requests I've been receiving a lot from female Shinigami ever since the women of the 8th declared me to have been sent by the Spirit King to reward the hard-working female Shinigami. Also, everyone in the division knows that they can come to me at any time, no formal request needed. 2 major mistakes that pointed her out instantly as an outsider. I stride away, motioning for her to follow. We're heading to a secluded area where I can fight more easily, without risks to my subordinates. Very well, follow me please, I say as I leave. She quickly strides after me, taking up a position at my right side. 2 steps behind me, and a step to the right. The usual position for a lieutenant. Has to be AEthereal Lisa, former lieutenant of the 8th, given the hollow I now sense from her. She would probably take up that position due to her previous experience following a captain who was also in charge of the 8th. I switched courses, heading for the hot springs. I was officially declared welcome to them at any time shortly after Amita's death, and she isn't a threat to me. More likely she bears an offer for me. When we arrive, I quickly slip out of my robes and armor and let them fall to the ground, slipping into the water a moment later. She hesitates for a second, then follows suit as I head out towards the far edge of the springs, where we won't be heard by any others of the division. Thank you for your time, Captain, Yadamaru says as we arrive at the far edge of the springs. I wish to speak with you about how I cut her off with a raised hand. You're not of the 8th Division at the moment, Yadamaru Lisa. Don't address me as your captain right now, please, I ask her. The Central 46 is dead and your exile has been declared over. However, you would have to join the 8th, as the other captains don't want you at the moment, I say. So, we can return home if we join the 8th Division? Yadamaru asks me. I nod, and she closes her eyes for a moment. I will be happy to have you. I can always use more good fighters around, and you were all some of the best. I take it all of you attained Bankai in the years since your exile? I ask curiously. She has, I know that for sure. It is very clear in her power that she has Bankai. Yes, Yadamaru says, making a decision. Bankai is necessary to master our inner hollow. We can't fight it properly without having Bankai. They had Bankai the moment they formed, so we had to attain it quickly. We're all very practiced with it by now, she says. Call me Ichigo. I'll be learning from you for a while on how to suppress my hollow, so let's be friends, rather than subordinate and captain, okay? I ask her. Yes, Ichigo. In that case, please, call me Lisa. I'd hate to not reciprocate such courtesy as you have shown right off, letting me use your name rather than title, Ichigo-kun, Lisa says, smiling. I have a very bad feeling, as if Renji is nearby. I reach out to sense her and she is far away from me, training. Very well, Lisa. We'll leave for our home in the world of the living immediately after we finish this little soak then. I ask. I'm not good at being subtle yet, so I'll be as blunt as possible. Our home, Ichigo-kun. Well, we share it with the other wizard, so we'll have to keep the noise down tonight, Lisa says, her smile turning into something you might see on a cat that just caught not only a very tasty bird, but also ate the owner's pet fish and got a treat for doing so from their owner. I walked right into that one, I must admit. Right into it, and now I have to extract myself from the trap. My instincts are screaming for me to retreat from this situation. The home of the wizard. I'm a wizard. You're a wizard. That is all I meant, I say cautiously, face red. But we could have so much fun together, Ichigo-kun, Lisa says, her grin not fading at all. I am getting very scared of the situation. Are you sure you won't reconsider? She asks, her tone promising mischief. I overrule my hormones through pure willpower and barely succeed. Once I suppress my inner hollow, okay Lisa. My traitorous mouth says. I try to snatch back the words before they are spoken, but I'm too late. They escaped and her smile is looking far too much like a predator's right now. Okay, Ichigo-kun, she says, her tone filled with satisfaction. I am doomed. I know it. She knows it. This is very, very bad. Stop seducing Ichigo Taicho Ichi-chan. Two voices cry out as Lisa is hit by a pair of sandals, one from each voice. I sigh in relief, only to return to my alarmed state at the next words I hear. That's our job. Momo and Nana say, and I slump into the water with a groan of despair. Kill me now. Seriously, just kill me now, someone. It would be a mercy kill. Then I remember something terrifying. The Espada who said she would join me if I beat Grimjo using a blade that wasn't Wabasuk. She'll probably bring her Frachian. Knowing my luck, at least one of them will join this group. Yes, anyone who kills me right now would be doing me a favor. A massive favor indeed. A few hours later, at the Wizard warehouse. Well, we're home, Ichigo-kun, Lisa says. Now, I'll show you our room, okay? She asks. I enter panic mode, but conceal my panic carefully behind the mask of my helm and a mask of calm emotions, not letting it enter my voice or dot. What do you mean, our room? I ask carefully. Well, we only have 8 beds here. You declare yourself a wizard and name this our home in the living world, so naturally you'll be staying here. Hiyori, Rose, Kensei, and Love wouldn't share. I doubt you'd have room to do anything but sleep on the floor with Hachi. Sorry about that Hachi, Lisa says, but the pink-haired man wearing a green tuxedo waves the comment off. Shinji, well you don't want to be around him when he's sleeping and Mishiro would keep you up all night with her antics. So it's me, or nowhere. No wizard is allowed to sleep on the floor by Shinji's decree. He went to quite a bit of trouble to get us those beds and has insisted on us using them ever since, Lisa tells me. So either you or a sleepless night. I ask her. It's not even a question in my mind. Which one of you is Mishiro? I only know the names, not the faces, sorry about that, I tell them as I look around. Lisa points to the green-haired girl in a white jumpsuit and I instantly turn to her. May I please room with you instead of Lisa? I almost begged. Okay, Berry Tan, she says. I wince at this form of address. Please, use Ichigo, I ask her. I turn towards Shinji as she is considering this request, head tilted in a manner that is far too cute, and hand him the formal scroll declaring their exile at an end. He opens it and begins to read. Mishiro looks like she's about to answer me, but Lisa hushes her. As he reads, Shinji begins to look shocked, then happy, then angry. It's not a trick. I appealed to my great-grandfather to let you join the 8, I told him, and the anger vanished, replaced again by happiness. It's over. Can we go home? He asks in a quiet tone, almost as if not daring to hope for so much. Yes. The Serite is calling its children home, Hirako Shinji, I tell him. He hangs his head for a moment, raising his hand to wipe at his eyes. I silently look away, letting him keep his pride. In the living world, this place is still our home, the home of the wizard, but in the spirit realm I trail off. This is the best gift I've gotten in a long time, little brother, Shinji says, grabbing me, pulling my helm off, and ruffling my hair. There any other good news? He asks hopefully. I don't have much good news for you all. Just a few things. Your exile is lifted, the Central 46 is dead, and war has been declared against the traitor Aizen. That enough? I ask them all, and am greeted with shock. Our exile is lifted? Kensei asks cautiously. I was given pictures of the former captains, and know who they are. That scroll was the formal declaration of it, Shinji replies before I can. We can go home after a century away. No more being on the run, no more worrying about using our powers. We have a new little brother, and he comes bearing gifts. He joyously shouts as I am mobbed by the other wizard, introducing themselves and either ruffling my hair or hugging me, depending on which gender they are. Tensei doesn't bother ruffling my hair. Instead, he punches me in the arm. Mishiro turns to glare at him, then I punch back. He nods at me. I nod at him. Formalities satisfied, we carefully hug each other in a way that won't hurt our pride as males. Hiyori hits me in the face with a sandal, then pronounces that she'll look after me from now on. Hachi bows to me politely, and I start a discussion on keto with him before Shinji stops us. Well then, welcome home little brother, Love says as I smack Shinji with a sandal. What was that for? Shinji asks furiously. I look at Hiyori. She looks at me. We both nod, and Shinji gets hit with 2 sandals. My attack to the head, then Hiyori's sandal, attached to Hiyori, to the balls. He hits the ground in the fetal position, groaning in pain. Why me? He asks pathetically. You interrupted my conversation, baka Shinji. I yell at him. He groans. Oh great, now there's 2 of them. I barely survived one, and I'm about to be under the command of the other, he says, then realizes what he said, and whimpers. Taicho, do you have any nice dangerous mission orders among your paperwork? The kind a man can go on with a solid certainty that he won't be coming back. One of those missions that carries a promise of certain and painful death with it. You know, those missions. Like a run into the lair of 1,000 Bastolord, or entering hell, or something like that. He asks hopefully. If so, I'd like to volunteer to carry one of those missions out to the best of my ability. I'm very capable, I'm sure I can manage to both complete the mission and die in the doing of it, he says. No. I have no such missions right now, I say, then remember something. Except for one. It came from Kairaku Shunsui, now captain of the 5th in the wake of Aizen's betrayal. It will be dangerous. It will likely result in your death. I warn you now, this is probably a suicide mission. I'll do it, Shinji says, and I grin. I have him now. He is going to hate this mission, I'm sure. The mission is simple. Steal all the clothes of every female in the 4th division while they're in one of the hot springs at the 8th. Get a picture of them en masse as they leave the springs, then an individual picture of every single one of them. Make copies of each picture and post them all over the Sirte. Once you have done that, publicly admit that you are the culprit and leave the clothes in the care of the 11th division after bribing their lieutenant with all the candy she can eat and the captain of the 11th with a promise to fight him and tell the 4th that's where you left the clothes. Then, volunteer to accept any punishment that they wish to give you, I say, and Shinji's face turns so pale it's almost transparent. As I spoke, his face slowly became a mask of horror. Did I say I'd do it? You must have misheard, I said I wouldn't, under any circumstances, do it, he says hastily. I take out my phone and grin. I have your statement recorded, I say, and he screams in despair. However, I'll ensure you stay the same gender, still have your, and are alive and reasonably well by the end of your punishment, I say. He nods, and he knows he is damned. I love having a brother, Hiyori says, laughing. He lifts his head and glares at her. I'm about to die, he says dramatically. But first, suppression training, he says. I nod and return my helm to my head, drawing Raijin Jaka. This will be a lot of fun for me, and no fun at all for the rest of them. They get to face Anka no Tachi as I train to suppress my hollow. Which are you using? Shinji asks. My smile turns very dangerous, and someone whimpers. They are not going to enjoy this battle, but I feel it's the best way for a new brother to thank them for welcoming me to the family. Do you know about me having multiple? I ask, and they all nod. Urahara must have told them, which I don't personally mind. They needed to know about me before they welcomed me into the family, after all. We just don't know the names of your dots, so can we please know which one you're using? Shinji asks. Behind him, Urahara, Tessai, Yuruchi, Kurenai, Renji, Nanao, and Momo are entering. I point to them, and the other wizards turn to look. What are you all doing here? Urahara smiles at this question and raises Benahum, which is in his right hand. Yuruchi has a sheathed blade at her side and is carrying another in her left hand, which she tosses to Hachi. Momo is carrying a few bags of candy and tosses them to Mishiro, who looks at them and cheers. Hachi's and those candies are yours courtesy of Yamamoto, Urahara says. And we're here to help suppress Ichigo's hollow, he continues. Shinji nods as Mishiro does her best to crush my ribs with a hug. I'm using Raijin Jaka, by the way, I tell them, and they all groan. Well, here we go. We're about to be all burned up, Shinji groans. You need to go to Bankai, then beat your hollow. If you go Bankai right off and crush your hollow completely before we have to step in, that would be very nice, he continues. I nod. The hollow needs to use Bankai as well, so let's get to it, Shinji declares as he leads us towards the wizard training field. A few minutes later, I enter Jinzan and head into Zangetsu's realm, which is still covered in mist. "Hello king," my hollow says as I reach the center of the sideways city, which is clear of mist. "Time to decide who's king and who's horse in this relationship, and you won't be king, I can assure you of that," the hollow boasts, drawing his blade. It is Zangetsu and Shikai, just as expected. I raise Raijin Jaka, and the temperature rises as the mist begins to burn away. I create a screen of sorts made out of and connect my vision to it. My body is hollofied and is missing only the hollow hole now. It looks much like a humanoid dragon. "What are you doing? How's it getting hot in here?" my hollow demands to know. Through the mist, other realms begin to be visible, and I point. My hollow looks where I'm pointing and sees the snowy peaks of Sode no Shirayuki's realm, the massive volcanoes present in both Hineko's and Raijin Jaka's realms, and the high mountains of Ten no Akari's, Tenkin's, and Hazukimaru's realms. The mist clears further, and the realms of my become clearer. "Zangetsu is not my only, baka," I tell him, and he curses. "So you're going to use another no fair. I'm better than you with Zangetsu and can suppress your ability to use his Bankai. I can beat you with Zangetsu, so use him. I haven't had time to devour your other spirits, so I can't use their powers." He wails. "Life isn't fair," I deadpan, flames beginning to appear as the last of the mist vanishes. Kai no T no, Megami's realm is visible now, and we both look at the endless battle with longing. We would both enjoy joining in. Kenpachi's curse hasn't hit me fully and won't unless Araki dies, but it's still present, lurking in my mind, letting me enjoy battle to the fullest. Other realms appear, and my hollow curses loudly. "Well, this isn't going to be fun at all, is it?" he asks in a melancholy tone. "No, you're just going to get crushed like a bug. But tell me, how strong are you as a basic hollow? If you're strong enough, I might grab a meal while I'm in Hueco Mundo training with your powers," I say, and he perks up. "The Juchas, nearly Vastolord. Imagine if I evolved to Vastolord with that kind of power," he says. "If I strengthen him by eating, he'll have another chance at taking control. But once I beat him, he can't enter my other Zanpakuto's realms without their permission. The chains forged by my victory will bind him to Zangetsu's realm, keeping him from using my other the next time we fight." "Very well. I'll grab a bite to eat while we're in Hueco Mundo," I tell him. Fear. Despair. Know your limits and do not attempt to surpass them. Reduce all creation to smoldering ash, Raijin Jaka. A pillar of flame engulfs me as I name the blade, which is now engulfed in fire, Zangetsu's realm encircled by the blaze I just created, keeping my hollow from leaving, so he gets bound in a different realm, and thus can get stronger by using that to do so. The strongest fire type is Zanpakuto. "Great, just great," my hollow says sarcastically. "Bankai," he says. "Bankai so early? Then I'll match that," I say. My hollow hole has formed in the outside world I see. "Okay then, time to get serious. Bankai," I say. The flames gather at Raijin Jaka and are sealed in the blade as the heat rises. My hollow curses virulently. "Zanka no Tachi," I say. "Densa Zangetsu," my hollow declares. In a burst of speed, he attacks, then leaps back with a yelp. "Hot. Very hot indeed. What the hell, Ichigo?" he screams. "I am engulfed by the flames of the sun when using Zanka no Tachi," I explain. "Zanka no Tachi, Tohoku. Nani Moachu no Yakido, and once more Zangetsu's realm is circled by flames. Zanka no Tachi, Kita. Tenchi Kajin, and the flame boils forth. My hollow tried to dodge, but I unleashed the attack and catch him with it when he appears. With a howl of rage, he falls to his knees, barely surviving. I reach out with my empty hand, and his blade flies to me. Again, he howls, then vanishes as I once more unleash Tenchi Kajin, hitting him head-on, rather than merely grazing him as I did with my second strike. I sheath my hollow's blade in a new sheath that appears across my back as it leaves Bankai. Then I leave my inner world, content with today's work. "Are you done?" Shinji asks as I leave my inner world. He and the other wizard are on the floor, covered in sweat from the heat Zanka no Tachi unleashed. Most was contained in the barrier Hachi just let fall, but the warehouse still feels like an oven. I nod, and he smiles, then lets his head fall back onto the floor. Momo is the only non-wizard still standing. Her is partly a fire type, and that grants her some partial immunity to heat. "Dibs on the shower," Lisa says, crawling towards the stairs. "Okay, we'll just lie here and recover," Shinji groans, and the others clearly agree, as none of them try to move except for Yoruchi, Mashiro, and Nanao. Momo starts walking towards the stairs as well. I consider, then head over and grab Mashiro. Yoruchi, Nanao, and Lisa just look at me, and I curse my kindness as I pick them up as well, Yoruchi taking on her cat form as I pick her up. She lies down on one of my shoulders, with Mashiro sitting on the other as Lisa and Nanao hang limply, one of my arms wrapped around each of them. I head up, Lisa telling me where to go to get to the shower, Momo following cheerfully. When I arrive, I set the 4 women down, turn, and leave. Or I try to at least. The door is locked by Aikido, and I can tell from that Yuruchi cast it. I'm not good with the Reiatsu sensing technique others use, so I brute force my technique. I blanket a wide area with Reiatsu, then see which signatures are familiar and where they are in that area. I can only use the technique most use, which requires better control than I have when I'm close up. The shower turns on behind me, and I feel myself engulfed by horror. Yuruchi is back in human form and starting to lift herself to her feet. Damn my luck, and if I ever find the kami messing with my life, they die. Painfully. We can't shower on our own, Ichi-chan, Momo says. And I can't do all the work myself. So you have to help out, she declares happily. I sigh in resignation and begin to remove my armor and robes as Momo gets the clothes of the other 4 off. They have been hit with too much heat at once, as well as too much Reiatsu, to do much besides stand, and even that would be a challenge. Fine, I'll help, I say in a resigned tone. Thanks Ichi-chan, Momo says cheerfully. She finishes with the clothes right about the time I get the last piece of my armor off. The shower is big enough for 2 at a time, so this will hopefully go quickly. Then the shower explodes as a Sakatsui hits it, and I curse. Looks like we're stuck with the bath, damn it. That will hold all of us, but it's far easier for Yuruchi and Lisa to pull their tricks while in the bath. Far easier, and I curse my luck at this realization. Yuruchi was the one who fired the Sakatsui, and I mentally curse her as I start filling the bath. So, we're going to be at your mercy, Ichigo-kun? Lisa asks. Well, we're going to have quite a bit of fun, aren't we? A 6-way between us all, with 1 male for us all to have some fun with, Lisa teases mercilessly. I concentrate on the water in the bath, mentally willing the water level to rise faster. Indeed, we're going to have so much fun, Yuruchi adds. I didn't know your hormones were this bad, Ichigo. Locking yourself in a room with us when all you had to do was ask, and I would have helped, she continues. I flush red and curse my luck. You were the one who locked the door, I snarl back at her, my hands itching to have a blade in them. The curse is stirring within at the flickers of anger that I'm starting to have at this teasing. Why so angry? Yuruchi asks cautiously. Denpachi. Curse. Reacting, I growl out, and the room is instantly silent and still as I wrestle with the curse. No one wants to be anywhere near a Kenpachi in the grips of their curse and ready for a fight. Sorry, Yuruchi says as the deadly air that filled the room, which was unnoticeable while she was teasing me, fades away, the curse receding back into the depths of my mind. If I was fully a Kenpachi, control would be impossible. Zaraki isn't affected by it, but he was already bloodthirsty enough without it that the curse isn't needed to enhance his desire for battle and blood. Accepted. Now let's get this over with, I say, determined not to have to deal with this longer than necessary. Okay. I know you have to go get training as a Quincy in a couple hours, so we'll not tease you for a while, okay? Yuruchi asks. I nod in agreement. The Kenpachi's curse is fairly well known, so the others now are going to be a bit warier about cornering me. The curse reacts when I'm cornered. A couple hours later, at Ishida's training grounds. Are you ready to begin training as a Quincy, Ichigo? Uriu asks. I nod, bringing my bow into existence. Uriu materializes his own bow, and we raise them as one, an arrow of blue Reishi appearing on Uriu's bow, and an arrow of black Ryuryoku appearing on my bow. Not so fast, Uriu. As the senior Quincy in this area, loath as I am to admit it, I have not given you permission to train him, someone says. I turn and see that behind us stands Ishida Ryokan. Father, what are you doing here? Uriu asks in alarm. I turn around, bow at the ready, black arrow now crackling with power as I prepare for battle. I make sure that I can draw a blade in an instant should this meeting turn unfriendly and prepare to loose my arrow. I was curious as to why you brought an outsider, specifically a Shinigami, to Quincy training grounds. Imagine my surprise when you were about to show him Quincy techniques. I would prefer to have you concern yourself with the living instead of the dead, and being friendly with the Shinigami will embroil you in their affairs. Are you planning to wear a shihakusho and carry a Zanpakuto sometime soon, Uriu? Ryokan asks sarcastically. I see nothing wrong with teaching a cousin of mine, your sister's son, how to use his inborn powers, Uriu replies. I see. Very well. But I wish an answer to my question. Are you planning to abandon the matters of the living entirely and focus on the world of the dead? If so, you might as well take up a Zanpakuto, Ryokan proclaims. The 8 would have him if he chose to do so, I say casually. Both turn to look at me, Uriu contemplative. On what authority would you welcome a Quincy into the 8th division, nephew? Ryokan asks coldly. I point to my Haori, hung up along with my robes when I entered the training field. So, you are captain of that division, and could do so. I would respect Ryu's decision should he choose that fate, then, he says. Let us return to training. First, we need to work on speed of firing arrows, Ryu says. I only know Ransa Tengai and how to make and use the bow, so I have practiced those quite a bit recently. I lift my bow, and a dozen arrows lance out in quick succession, striking true and deadly. You've been practicing then? Ryu says, asking a clearly rhetorical question. I materialize 100 arrows of Riryoku in the air around me, and using the same principle of Reishi manipulation that allows me to send them from my bow, fire. Another 100 follow a second after, and then another 100. Why are you using Riryoku? Raiken asks curiously. He is leaning back against the wall, but he has gathered Reishi to him, clearly ready to form a bow. Using Riryoku causes the arrows to purify, rather than destroy souls, I tell him, and Ryu suddenly looks interested. It takes more Riryoku than you currently have, Ryu, to properly make use of such a technique, but if you spent a significant amount of time in the Serite, separated from your body rather than having your body converted to Reishi, you would grow strong enough to make use of the technique easily in only a month or so. I'd be willing to help separate soul from body, and it would be fairly easy to maintain your connection to your body if you wish to keep it over having a Gigai that can take more power usage than a human body can, I say. Ryu is clearly considering my offer, then nods sharply. I'll plan your visit to the Serite for once we return, then. I ask, and he nods again. Also, the Serite pays a bounty for every solar hollow purified, so hunting them will bring in more than enough for you to make a decent living, I tell him, and now Raiken looks interested as well. I believe I might join in this visit as well, Raiken says. I consider, then nod in assent. 2 are easier to move than 1. The resources needed to set everything up are put to less waste if the specialized equipment required that in its normal form, freeze Shinigami from Gigai, is used on multiple people. That particular item is only useful for 1 day after its creation, so if we can bring Chad along as well, that would be even better. The less wasted resources that could be put towards the Eternal War, the better. Very well. How soon will you be leaving? Ryu asks. 3 days. We'll attend the festival tonight, then spend a day apprehending the bounce and dragging them back to the Serite. Afterwards, we'll take a day to set everything in order and leave that evening. Urahara will begin creation of the specialized equipment required to separate souls from human bodies without breaking the connection of the two immediately, I say, and send my orders with one of the hell butterflies I'm now required to carry as a captain. I have to carry at least a dozen of the things at all times in case I need to send orders rapidly to someone. Mine are of the courier breed, moving swiftly to deliver the messages I wish delivered. Only the finest of each hatching are picked out to serve the captains, the fastest of them usually taken by those captains who are also nobles. The message will soon arrive at the shop, and the orders are easy to confirm. These ones were bred specifically for me and carry my mark, which means the orders will be followed the moment they are received, no other confirmation necessary. In Hueco Mundo. Stark's Pav. Well, I believe all 3 of us, plus our Frachian, are ready to leave. I ask Baragan and Hannibal. They nod, as do their Frachian. Lilinet was jumping up and down earlier at the prospect of escaping Towson's lectures on justice, so I don't need to ask her opinion on this. Indeed. The Shinigami we're looking for will be wearing full samurai-styled armor and wear a white haori with the symbol for the 8th division on it, Hannibal says. I nod, understanding this. To have the best chance of finding him, we should split into 4 groups. Myself and my Frachian have all seen him and can fairly easily find his Ryatsu signature again. Stark, Lilinet and Apache will do for 1 group. Sun and Baragan-san for another group. Finally, I will take 3 of Baragan's Frachian, while Mila Rose will take the other 3. That doesn't concentrate too much power in 1 group, making us easy to find, she reasons. I nod in agreement, though I would have preferred Sun to go with me. However, Baragan would probably kill Apache. This is the safest arrangement for us all, keeping power decentralized. Also, this captain enjoys battle. If we move in a strong group, we are likely to have to fight him before he will listen, Hannibal states. Very well, I approve this idea, Baragan says. His Frachian nod and form 2 groups as Hannibal's Frachian separate. I agree as well, I say. Now, shall we leave or not? I ask, eager to be out of here before Aizen turns his attention to our gathering. I hear a laugh from behind me and recognize the voice. This will have to be a quick kill, or he'll raise the alarm. You're not leaving without me. I am not being around Aizen even a minute longer than I have to be now that I know there's an alternative, Neutra says, and Grimjo steps out in front of our group with his Frachian, nodding. Tesla is beside Neutra, tensed, clearly ready to fight. Agreed. Either you bring us along when you defect, or we raise the alarm, Grimjo says. I look at the others, then nod in agreement. I'll take my Frachian and find him. Baragan's Frachian and that Mila Rose can stick together. Hallible can guide Neutra, I suppose, he says. Also, we have a little gift for the Shinigami. We found it while out hunting, and one of his Frachian, Edred, shoves forward a little girl clad in a green robe of sorts and a Shinigami with a hollow mask covering his face. There were 2 other Rancor with the brat, but we left them where they were. This one, I recognized as Neliel, and the Shinigami will probably like having an Rancor of that strength around if she can be returned to her old self, Grimjo reasons. I nod, approving of this idea. Bring them back a lost comrade and some extra firepower as well, and we'll get a much better welcome than otherwise expected. Okay, we'll bring those 2 along. Let's go, before anyone runs into us, I say, and a Garganta is swiftly opened. Goodbye Las Noches, you were a good vacation home, but the vacation is over. We're heading to the Sirte to make our home now, as the desert just lacks something compared to a place like Las Noches or the Shinigami stronghold. Among those things the desert lacks are soft beds, food that isn't another hollow, company that can survive my presence, silk sheets for those nice soft beds, a place where I can sleep more than 12 hours a day, peace and quiet, as the howls of hollows on the hunt are always resounding among the dunes, comfortable pillows to rest my head on when I'm sleeping in one of those beds. And various other things. Yeah, I'm not going back to the desert. By popular demand, edited scene. Towson's trial. Ichigo Pav. I take it this Zanpakuto spirit will be taking the place of the defendant as she bears a connection to him and will be able to adequately represent him. One of the tribunal asks. 5 of the royal guard agreed to act as the tribunal, all of them from well before Towson's time. Yes, I reply. I am here representing the Gate 13's interests in the matter, with the other captains watching in an interested manner from the nearby seating area. Very well, let the trial begin. Towson Taicho, to the charges of guilty. Suzumashi yells. The judge who was speaking looks annoyed at the interruption. He is about to begin again when she continues. And you can add on the charges of Zanpakuto neglect, idiocy, and not being Ichigo-sama as well, she says. I give the judges a long-suffering look and they nod, sympathy in their eyes. Naturally, the last of those 3 is the most serious, deserving immediate execution without question, Suzumashi declares. Towson Taicho, to the charges of experimenting with holification, being an accomplice to treason, high treason, betraying the Gate 13, assisting in forbidden. Guilty. Suzumashi calls out. I plead guilty on every charge you can think of and in fact plead guilty to stealing candy from Yuichiro-chan. A cheer goes up from some of the watching Shinigami at admission to this crime. Before I was interrupted, I was about to say that I plead guilty to stealing candy from the lieutenant of the 11th, who is a child, kicking puppies, theft, assaulting fellow Shinigami, insulting the Central 46, trespassing, theft of another Shinigami Zanpakuto, murdering innocent hollows that were just minding their own business, forcing my Zanpakuto to manifest Bankai. Racking Kuritsuchi Taicho's experiments, stealing Kairaku Taicho's sake, and vandalizing the first division with graffiti, she says. The air is suddenly very warm in here, and there were oaths to kill Towson being sworn by Kuritsuchi and Kairaku. I see. We will add those to the books. Now, continuing the list of charges. Assisting in forbidden research, murdering the Central 46, murdering fellow Shinigami, associating with hollows known to be hostile to the Gate 13, entering the Gate 13 under false pretenses, betraying the oaths you swore as a captain, entering the service of a traitor to the Gate 13. Sabotaging the efforts of the Gate 13 to contain the Hollow Menace, sabotaging the efforts of the Gate 13 to contain a Ryoka invasion, taking a highly dangerous artifact from the Gate 13, and undermining the morale of your division. How do you plead? The judge asks. I have one hand over Suzumashi's mouth, preventing her from professing guilt during that list of charges. I remove it now, and she answers. Guilty on all charges. I recommend putting a bounty out on Towson's head, Suzumashi answers. Perhaps a guarantee that the Gate 13, so long as they aren't forced to act by a full-scale invasion of the living world, will not hunt down any hollow that brings his miserable carcass to the Sirte, minus the head. She queries. The bounty is agreed upon. The former Taicho, Kanam Towson, is now kill on sight, with the bounty on his head for any non-hollow being an amount equivalent to 100 years of a captain's salary, plus the contents of said trader's personal accounts, the judges decide after a minute. Also, should the hollow who brings us this traitor be in a judges, they will be fed upon the traitors in the maggot's nest until they have achieved sufficient power to evolve into a vasto lord. At this point, we must seek to deny the traitor Aizen any help that we can. If his servants are a rancor, as is suspected, then they will be allowed into the Gate 13, should they agree to defect. The division they will join is yet to be decided, however, is the declaration. The 8th will take them, I say, and the other captains of the Gate 13 nod in agreement. The judges confer, then with a pound of the gavel, the decision is made and sealed with the absolute authority of the Spirit King. Sir, we're ready to move out, Kurenai reports. Also, Yukitake Taicho just arrived. She said she wished to attend the festival and that you had told her about it while in the Sirte. Kichiki Taicho is accompanying her and both are in uniform, as are we all, she continues. Very well. We move out immediately, I order as I put my helm on. My mask is absent for the moment as I won't be needing it tonight. I have it hanging by my side, blades at the ready. Sir, the 11th will be arriving as well. Urahara reported this plan to the Satecho and he sent the 11th along so that people don't think only women can be Shinigami, Nana reports as she rushes over. I nod, then slip my mask on in case I get into a fight with someone from the 11th. I raise my hand, then let it fall, and we leave the camp below the shop, taking a Sinkamen out. As the Sinkamen opens, I see people staring up at the sky and another Sinkamen opening next to us. The Shingami of the 8th and the 11th begin to leave, with us captains following afterwards, once all of them have secured the area. The Shita Pav. Around the time night falls, I feel the opening of 2 Sinkamen and ready myself for the spectacle a full division of Shinigami deploying will be. However, I see 2 divisions entering the world of the living and realize that another division must have been sent. This Shinigami of the 2nd division that arrived have the kanji for 11 on their robes, so I guess they would, by that logic, be the 11th division. Then, just when I've gotten used to the Ryatsu of the Shinigami that are emerging, 4 stars blaze into existence, or spiritual beings with massive levels of power, lighting up the spiritual world with their might as 4 others leave the Sinkamen, wearing white haris over their robes. Ichigo Pav. Myself and the other 3 enter the living world, not bothering to restrain our Ryatsu too much. The area is already in a spiritual freeze, so we won't kill anyone if we don't restrain ourselves. We lead the 2 divisions down to the ground, then give orders for them to separate and enjoy themselves. I hear a few of the division members answering the questions of some of those more curious than others. Upon an expression of disbelief, I draw Kazushini and silently release his Shikai, providing proof. Then I wander off as well, heading towards my father's Ryatsu. He has my sisters with him and I want to see what memory Kido he used. My hands raise as a thought strikes me, and with a flicker of my fingers, Zanpakuto spirits manifest as everyone who can brings their spirit forth from their inner world. Sir, who are you? One child, more daring than the rest, asks me. I turn to him and silently seal and sheathe Kazushini. Yamamoto Ichigo, I say. Captain of the 8th Division, I continue. Soifan and Sajin, my guards assigned by Yamajiji, appear in a flicker of Shunpo at my side. They were patrolling earlier and now rejoin us since the area is clear of hollows. These 2 are Soifan and Kamamura Sajin, captains of the 2nd and 7th divisions respectively. The big one who looks like he's part wolf is Sajin and the other is Soifan. She's in charge of our intelligence and assassination force, so actually seeing her is rare. She's usually hiding in the shadows somewhere, I joke, and the kid nods solemnly. Now, go have some fun, this is a festival after all, I tell him. He nods again and runs off to play some game, I don't really care what. An Kananji is among a group of people telling them more about spirits, now highly respected by people. Shinigami-sama, might I ask you a few questions? One elderly woman asks me. I nod silently. I recognize her, though only by sight. She was always kind to children when she met them and also was very respectful of the dead. Ask. I will answer, if it is within my power to do so, I tell her. Is the afterlife a perfect place? She asks me, and I shake my head. Good, I would have hated perfection. It would bore me entirely. I heard that we don't stay forever, that the Sirte is just a place we stop for a while, before returning to the cycle of reincarnation, she states, and I nod, confirming this. If you don't mind, would you look for someone there? My granddaughter, Tomo Sakura. She was a sweet girl, always interested in the spiritual world. She died of illness recently, and I was hoping that someone would be able to look after her, the woman pleads. If it is within my power, she will be found and brought to a family in the first few districts of the Rukongai. Those are more comfortable than the rest, and as a captain and a noble, I have sufficient power to see that she is looked after, I say. She nods and bows deeply. Thank you. I don't ask anything for myself, but I want my granddaughter looked after, if at all possible, she says. I have only a few years left and want to have some knowledge that she, the last remnant of my family, is safe and well. We are imposing law on the Rukongai's lawless districts at the moment, making it a better place to live, I tell her. I will find your granddaughter, and when you die, I will personally collect your soul and reunite you, if I have not died in battle by then, I say. She bows again, tears in her eyes, and leaves silently. I vanish into Shunpo, in no mood to answer any more questions. I sensed a Garganta opening nearby, at the location of my sisters and father. Given the power that would be needed to force a Garganta through the barrier that was set up by the 8th, a vast lord is entering this world. I reappear on one of the roofs and draw Zangetsu. Bankai, I say, and a tornado of black Ryatsu whips up around me as others sense the Garganta as well and draw their blades. As a wizard, I am sensitive to hollow power, more so than the average Shinigami. Tensa Zangetsu, I declare as the black Dido is revealed, my coat flapping in the wind. I am surrounded in the shadows, which seethe with power, my entire body enveloped by a dark aura. The Shikai of all my seated officers, as well as the Shikai belonging to Soifon, Ikaku, Byakuya, Jushiro, and Sajin, release without a word. Bankai. Ryuman Hazukimaru. Ikaku calls. If I'm going Bankai straight off, then the problem is likely something that will require a lot of power to contain. Given that I have sufficient power to be the next Satecho, I've become a bit of a measuring stick for reactions by other Shinigami. I use Bankai, it's probably a good idea for any other with Bankai to use it. Soifon snarls, then jumps onto one of the roofs, securing herself to the building with threads of Reishi, using a technique similar to Ransa Tengai that I developed and taught her. Bankai. She shouts, enveloped for a moment by light. Jakuho Reikabun. A massive missile launcher now occupies her left arm, ready to fire. A Bankai that uses all the destructive power inherent to all Bankai to deliver a single blow. I've been working with her on building up Ryatsu so she can use it once every 2 days, now that her Ryatsu stores have increased a bit rather than the once every 3 days that used to be her limit. That attack will be kept in reserve just in case. Bankai. Kakujo Tenjin Mayao. Sajin calls and the ground splits, a building exploding as a massive hand shoots out of the earth and the mighty samurai that is Tenkin's true form drags himself out of the ground. Bankai. Yozo Akado. Kurenai calls and the 4 elemental giants that are the base of her Bankai come forth. She can conjure more giants, but she's been focusing on 4 at a time for now. Bankai, Byakuya says calmly as the corridor of blades rises behind her. Scatter, Senbansakura Kageashi, and the massive storm of tiny blades forms. The other officers of my division prepare to release Bankai, but hold off for the moment at my signal. 6 Bankai will hopefully be enough to deal with the threat without involving them. All of us except Soifon vanish into Shunpo, appearing on the roofs above where the Garganta is, our Bankai ready for battle. I don't want Nanao's Bankai drawn into this either, nor her other Zanpakuto. Once she discovered Bankai, Nanao discovered that she had a second Zanpakuto spirit sleeping in her soul. Both her Zanpakuto's abilities are wide area effects and not good at all if she is fighting alongside others. Well, this is an interesting welcome, Grimjo says as he and several other Rancor emerge from the open Garganta. Grimjo. Why are you here? I ask him. We're defecting. There a place in the Sirite for us? He asks me. We brought a couple gifts as well, he says, motioning to 2 other Rancor, who bring a Shinigami and a child clad in green rags forward. One of your Shinigami, who was trapped in the Minos forest, and in a Rancor who was the Tercera Espada before her mask was broken. If you can fix it, then you'll have another powerful ally around. As it is, we're bringing you the Sexta, Quinta, Tercera, Segunda, and Primera Espada to swell your ranks, plus Frachian, all of whom are low captain level fighters, Grimjo says. Add that to another Tercera Espada, though she's probably only about Kyorta level by the current rankings, and you have a lot of extra firepower around. Even the Decima is stronger than any Frachian. Hell, probably stronger than any 3 Frachian. Each Espada is at least an order of magnitude stronger than the Espada after them. Doesn't that sound like a good enough offer to have us let into your ranks? Grimjo asks. Well, a Rancor's Zanpakuto can purify souls, I suppose. I ask, and Hannibal nods in answer. She and 2 other very powerful Rancor just emerged from the Garganta in time to hear my question. Behind them, the Garganta closes and the shadows created by its opening fade from the street, which is well lit by paper lanterns. The buildings on either side of the street are businesses, not homes, so no need to worry about innocents if this does become a fight. Also, I take it you want to get into the Gate 13 to start learning Shinigami arts, so you can take full advantage of being a hybrid. I ask Grimjo, who looks shocked. A Rancor can probably learn Shikai and Bankai if they work at it, just as Vizard, your opposite number, can likely learn Resurrection. Now, combine Resurrection with Bankai, then add the ability to use Kido and the natural abilities available to a Hollow, and you become at least 100 times stronger. Shikai makes a Shinigami 10 times stronger than when their blade is sealed, and Bankai is 10 times stronger than Shikai. Throw Kido into the mix and meld your Resurrection with a mastered Bankai, and you would probably be a lot stronger than just 100 times stronger, I tell him, and he slowly nods as he starts to understand. Also, I think Resurrection is your equivalent of Shikai. Once you master it, I think there would be a second stage to Resurrection. When you used Resurrection, Grimjo, something about the state you entered felt incomplete to my blade. It was the same feeling I get when I fight someone with only Shikai, who is using that Shikai. When my division was training, I had a lot of time to train myself and make observations about such things. I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, I'm use almost to myself. Another level to Resurrection, huh? Plus Bankai. Plus your Keto equals a lot more strength, Grimjo says as he puts the pieces together. Yeah, that's my reason for defecting, right there. Good job figuring it out, Shinigami. So, you are traitors, then, an apathetic voice states. I look around, but can't see the speaker. I am not here. I am using Keto to observe and communicate. I would not be able to win against a group such as this. Shinigami, I congratulate you on discovering the existence of Segunda Etapa. I am Ulquiorra Cipher, and when we meet face to face, Shinigami, I will show you Segunda Etapa, the form of true despair when it is in my hands, the voice says. Then I feel a Reiatsu thread snap and a garganta opens far away. Well, that's two of my theories confirmed then, I say. Let's go get you settled at the barracks, deal with the paperwork. Follow me, I say as I leave. Well, Aizen is now down a few useful allies, and we're up a lot in firepower. The traitor's days are numbered, and I will enjoy killing him. Filthy, Zanpakuto neglecting scum. Almost as bad as Tausen, but not quite. But he'll get that bad, I'm sure. What was the problem, Taicho? Lisa asks as she and the other wizard, now in robes again, join me as I return to the festival. It took almost 2 hours to settle everything, and in that time the wizard were apparently informed that 6 Bankai had been used. Given how rare it is for anyone but me to freely use Bankai, that indicates a serious problem. A ranker defecting from Aizen's army. Any other night, that wouldn't have drawn attention. But tonight, with the barriers that were set against Garganta, it would require several Vasto Lords to open one. That was the reason for alarm, I tell her, and she nods. Vasto Lords are tricky to deal with. In Hueco Mundo or the Cerate, they are hard to fight. In the living world however, they are far easier to kill. The world of the living is not their place, and it weakens them substantially to be there. However, as more die due to their actions, the world grows less able to weaken them, and they slowly become as stronger than they would be in Hueco Mundo. Understood, sir. What will be done with them? Lisa asks me. She is apparently the spokesperson for the Vizard at the moment until they adapt to a return to the Gate 13. They are cousins to us Vizard. They will be welcome to the 8th as brothers and sisters, I reply, having decided on that some time ago. Back when Tausen was on trial, to be exact. They can use Keto. There's Zanpakuto Purify. They can probably get Shikai and Bankai given time. What about them is unlike us? I ask rhetorically. They were once hollows, they still have a hollow hole, and they can use Resurrection, Shinji replies. And have you ever attempted Resurrection? I ask him. It should be within your grasp. Your hollow was a mix of you and a hollow. And a rancor, as it was primarily a hollow. It used a blade. It released, and you hollow feed. I am guessing that the form you took was its Resurrection, I reply. He looks thoughtful, then slowly nods. We are out of the way of the main part of the festival at the moment, so no one can hear our conversation. You were once hollows as well, when your hollow first took over. You would develop a hollow hole if you used Resurrection. So again, how different are Rancor and Vizard? I ask him. They are given rationality when they remove their masks. We are given instinct when we don our masks. So explain to me how a Rancor are unfit for a Shinigami's duties, or be silent, I command. Yes, Taicho, Shinji says. I get what you mean, and there isn't that much difference. We're both hybrids, so I can understand your meaning better than some others might, he continues. You have our support on this, Taicho, and the others of this little family, now part of my family, not in agreement. I believe I will go find my previous family. Anyone care to join me and watch from the shadows to make sure Isen doesn't try anything? I ask, and Lisa steps forward. She seems eager to volunteer. Possibly wanting to make amends for causing the Kenpachi's curse to stir within me. I decide it doesn't matter and nod in approval of her joining me on this excursion. We both vanish into Shunpo, her following me seeking out 3 very familiar Reiatsu signatures. Hello, Taicho-san, Isen says when I arrive. Might I ask why you came to speak with us? I silently feel out the memory Keto on Karen and Yuzu and sense that it is very through. The memories are gone. I have my reasons, I reply as I remove my helm. My orange hair, grown long during my time in the Cerate, returns to its usual state of hanging down to the small of my back that it takes when my helm doesn't confine it. Your hair is just like our mom's was, Karen says. I take on an interested look, already having decided on my cover story if it was impossible to revive their memories. Perhaps we were related when I walked among the living as one of the living. I ask, taking on a tone more deliberate and formal than my usual one. My tone has been this way all evening, more archaic. What was her name? I ask. We never saw a picture of our mother's father, so I can use that to my advantage. Hirosaki Misaki, Yuzu replies. Orange hair like mine. I would guess that she was most likely my daughter then, I say. I glare at Isin, warning him not to object. When I lived, I had a daughter named Misaki. Souls age very slowly, and the aging process slows even more for Shinigami, I say to quiet their disbelief. They gasp at this, disbelieving for a moment. Do you know what happened to her then? Karen asks. I hang my head sadly, reminded of my one great failure when I walked among the living. I nod slowly, confirming my knowledge of her fate. I do. My division is still seeking the hollow responsible for that act. It is a hard one to find and has evaded the Gate 13 for decades now. But we will bring Grand Fisher down, rest assured, I tell them. Thank you, Gigi, Karen says. I nod solemnly in reply. I am Yamamoto Ichigo, Kenpachi and captain of the 8th Division, I reply to her. You may call me Ichigo if you want, though. Okay, Ichi Gigi, Yuzu replies impertinently. I sigh and accept the title. At least I have some excuse to look out for them. Spirits usually don't remember much of their life, and I will use that fact to my advantage. For now though, I have other business to attend to and soon take my leave from that little gathering. The next day. Yamamoto Ichigo, Baragan greets me. During the time when I was registering them as members of the 8th Division, I had learned their names, which are unique enough to remember easily. I have an offer for you, he continues. What offer? I ask, slightly suspicious. He is the hardest to read of the Arankar that have joined me. Information and training. In return, I ask something simple. When you kill Aizen, instead of naming yourself King of Wako Mundo, return to me the throne. I would still serve the 8th Division, but I would also rule and keep under control the hollows of Wako Mundo, he tells me. You have a deal, Baragan-san, I reply after a moment's thought. That could be very useful, lessen the major incursions into the world of the living by hollows. The information he has will be priceless as well. During the 2 months my division was training, Yamajiji taught me the value of information and ensured that I learned everything I possibly could that would give me an advantage against the Sarate's major enemies in the time we had. Traitor Shinigami, or other organizations of Shinigami, are major threats, so I needed to learn as much as I could about how to deal with them. Information first. I will give you the names, powers I know about, and likely power levels of each Espada, as well as those who might fill the now vacant places, Baragan says. After that, I will train you. You showed us that you have hollow powers. However, I will train you to use them and help your hollow develop unique powers. As you are still partially human, that part locked into your soul, your hollow can change, I believe. Develop powers it wouldn't have without help. My aspect of death among the Espada was old age. I control time. Perhaps you can learn to use some similar ability with work, he explains. I nod eagerly, anxious to begin. Control of time, an amazing ability indeed. To undo an event that happened by reversing time in an area, to slow attackers, to speed my movement, to undo aging. There are many possibilities for this power. I am ready to begin, Baragan-sensei, I respond, bowing slightly in respect for my new teacher. Good. We begin with the Decima, who becomes the Zero when he releases. He is powerful enough in that state that he can defeat Stark, myself, Hannibal, and Ulquiorra without significant exertion. He will be an extremely dangerous foe. As he grows angrier, he grows stronger. As he grows angrier though, he loses more of his control. Rampaging, he is all but impossible to stop. But he is dangerous to both sides then. So kill him before he releases, or if that cannot be done, anger him beyond reason. Those are the only ways to best Yami. He has high speed regeneration when he releases, his arrow that is near impossible to pierce when he is concentrating on hardening his skin, and his Zero is sufficiently powerful to destroy a wall made of that Reiatsu repelling stone you Shinigami use. He overwhelms its capacity to repel Reiatsu and would likely be able to blast his way into the Sarate if he released, Baragan says. That is not good news at all. A being of that power is too dangerous to face with anything less than at least a half dozen captains, and we would have other Espada to worry about. If this Resurrection, Segunda Etapa, is as powerful as I have reason to think, Ulquiorra may be stronger than Yami. I have felt his full Reiatsu unleashed once. He is slightly stronger than me in raw Reiatsu at full power, but he was apparently content with remaining Kyorta. Segunda Etapa would make him far too dangerous a foe to face lightly, Baragan states grimly. Understood. So those two would be supremely dangerous beings, I say, irritated. We need to revise our plans to deal with Aizen. Nanao is off in one corner of the room, which is an exact replica of my office in the Sarate, taking notes as Baragan speaks. Not just those two. The Octava, Aroniero. He is possibly worse. He can use the powers of every hollow he has devoured, and he's eaten over 33,000 of them. He discovered that if he eats hollows while in Resurrection, he can continue normal hollow evolution. He recently became an Ajuchas, and things got worse. His resurrection changed slightly. He can now use all the powers the hollows he's eaten could have used had they become Ajuchas. Also, he can use the resurrection they would have had they become a ranker. 33,000 and more resurrection powers suited to every foe, Baragan states. A hollow with that kind of ability is the kind of dangerous that will require every Bankai the Sirte can muster, and then some. We're in trouble now. It gets worse. Aroniero must be killed once for every hollow he's eaten. It will be difficult to kill him the same way twice, so aim for blows that will slay him multiple times. The Septima, Zamari, when in resurrection, has 50 eyes. Each one can be used to control one person. He commands their actions totally. If he picks his targets well, he can deprive you of 50 of your best and turn them against you. Saiza Laporo, our scientist, is also not an easy foe to face. Should he draw blood, he can activate one of the dolls he carries and do sympathetic damage. I grasp what Baragan means and curse in utter horror. Also, he has figured out how to negate Bankai, and he creates his Frachian as needed. He takes a hollow and modifies it, turning it into a specialized ranker that is perfectly suited for one foe. Their resurrection is designed to combat one person. Fighting a foe created solely to defeat you, with only Shikai, while taking sympathetic damage. Not a pleasant prospect, Baragan declares. Indeed. Nanao, send this information to the Sirte immediately, I command, and she nods, then is about to leave when Baragan raises a hand to stop her. There is a vast lord that will probably replace me. I never learned his name, knowing him by reputation alone. He uses poison and plague. He creates deadly illnesses that he constantly breathes. 1,000 different poisons in your blood, 10,000 plagues cursing your body. You need a very good healer to have a hope of beating him, Baragan tells me. Not good at all. Shinigami can be killed by such things, and I really don't like the idea of being afflicted by poison. Now, we begin to train. But one other thing, before I forget. I know one ability of Aizen's Bankai. All reality is a dream, he calls it. Over reality, he writes his own dream, his own universe. Any wound that is dealt him becomes a dream, and the same happens anytime you block his blows. You get struck by his blade in the reality he makes, is Baragan's final statement before he rises from his chair. That is not good at all. I've barely figured out Kyoka Sujetsu's Shikai fully, how am I supposed to deal with that Bankai? I can seal it using my own ability with Kyoka Sujetsu, but can I seal it before Aizen makes that ability of mine a dream rather than reality? A few hours later. I'm going for a walk, I tell Baragan sensei as I prepare to leave the training fields, tired from my training with my newest teacher. Very well. I am pleased that my theory was correct about your hollow's ability to change, and thus your ability. You almost had that last respira correct, he states. I nod wearily, pleased with it myself. I head out of the training fields, going in the direction of the park I battled Grimjo in not too long ago. The mission to capture the bounce was cancelled by Yamajiji when he heard that the two Quincy's in this town would be coming to the Sirte with me. Chad had also agreed to accompany me, but it was thought best not to extend the invitation to Orihim until she comes to terms with the reality that I am a Shinigami. I arrive at the park and feel a very unwelcome presence. The same one that was spying on us last night, and I wearily raise my head as I draw Zanjetsu, ready to enter Bankai. Yamamoto Ichigo. I am not here to fight. Rather, I am here to inform you of two things. The first is how many stages there are to Hollow Evolution. The second is how many forms of resurrection there are. I do this so that you might truly despair, knowing you cannot defeat Aizen-sama, Alquiora says, stepping out in front of me. Stark had pictures of the other Espada and their resurrection and showed them to me, so I know what he looks like in general. His current form is different from either of those however, and I assume it's his Segunda Etapa. Showing off Segunda Etapa so early in this war. I'm honored, I say. Blades of green Riryoku, much like Grimjo's blades when in resurrection, adorn his forearms. His tail has a similar blade on it, and two massive sets of black wings adorn his back. An arc of green Riatsu sparks between his horns, and he has two hollow holes, smaller than the one he has in Primera Etapa, side by side in his dot. This is not Segunda Etapa. This form is my Tercera Etapa, Alquiora states flatly. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. There are 13 stages possible to resurrection. In Primera, our power increases by 10 times. In Segunda, we are 100 times stronger than we are in Primera Etapa, and so on. I have achieved Octava Etapa, and am close to Novena Etapa, Yamamoto Ichigo, he proclaims. I am probably very, very pale behind the mask of my helm, but I carefully hide my emotions, keeping my panic from entering my Riatsu. Furthermore, there are not merely 3 forms of Minos. There are 7. Jillian. Ajuchas. Bastolard. Rey Demonio. Demon King, Imperator Escuro. Dark Emperor, Angel Kaido. Fallen Angel, Dios Demonio. Demon God, I am in the process of evolving to an Imperatoress Guro. In but a few days, I will evolve. To reach these evolutions requires that a hollow become an Arankor. There are others of these kinds, sealed with their armies beneath Waco Mundo. Soon, once I evolve, Aizen Sama will be able to unseal and make use of the Rey Demonio, Ulquiorra states. The traitors will be replaced by more powerful warriors within days. Despair, for you cannot win this war, Ulquiorra says. I am in a panic and react instinctively to destroy the one who caused this panic, drawing on my newest hollow ability. Respira, I hiss, and the dark mist boils forth from the mask of my helm, aging all in front of it. In my panic, I finally draw enough on my hollow side to use the ability perfectly. Baragan-sensei will be pleased. Respira, according to him, is the stepping stone that I will use to gain control of time. Ulquiorra looks at the dark mist in interest, then nods and vanishes with Sunito before it reaches him. He's gone, but this news is absolutely horrible for the war effort. Yamajiji must know at once. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.